Chabisky eat banana. He is a male hooker, making love to Shanny to get some booger sugar. And then his pimp will slap him for not getting his cut. And if he gets too naughty, he will stretch out his butt. Turning the tricks, Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Chabisky eat banana, he is a male hooker, making love to Shanny to get some booger sugar. And then his pimp will slap him for not getting his cut. And if he gets too naughty, he will stretch out his butt. Turning the tricks, Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Chabisky, selling his ass, that's risky.
In the beginning, there was nothing. And then there was the Drunken Peasants Podcast.
I gotta get a witness. No!
Say, man, you got a joint? No, not on me, man.
I don't have facts to back this up.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
That's true. Sometimes I cry.
Oh!
Lick my butthole, he laughed.
From the strangest corners of the internet, here to bring you opinions of the world from an altered perspective. Here are your hosts, the Drunken Peasants.
Hello, everybody. Back again, doing another stream. I feel more alive today. I'm doing it live. I'm alive. And I'm back. Please like the stream. Streaming a little more. We were trying to hit 50% last night. We're at 49. I think we're going to get it. After we meet 50%, tonight's number one top tipper for today's episode will receive this. This is still up for grabs. So we're going to hit 50%. So basically everyone's donos tonight are going to count towards this, and tonight's number one tipper will get it. I will ship it to you. So there's not many of them left. I had them made years ago. There's probably like 5 of them left, not counting the 2 that are up for grab. Well, 1 already is spoken for. So just a reminder, if you want to be part of the race to get this during this stream, number one donor gets it. Yeah. And then there is, at the $33 patron level, this is the sticker for this month. and then we put it on a t-shirt for the $50 level on Patreon. So check that out too. I have to do the intro and the shilling and all that fun stuff. Before we get into the political stuff, I thought we would watch. I thought we'd watch a little more Kendall stuff because that was kind of hilarious. I have a Kendall video. Wow.
I should turn off that goddamn internet.
Oh, don't touch me.
Oh, don't touch me.
Yeah, they're gonna touch me.
All right. Let's check out this video.
Holler if you hear me. Yes, my camera's 4K, but it likes to start off out of focus. Here's a little something my father will remember. He actually got propositioned by a woman once at a Hollywood party. This lady sat in his lap with his pregnant wife sitting right next to him. Because, you know, he was one of 3 men who works in LA and actually respects the vow of being a married man, he was not an early adopter of knowing that they're real and they're spectacular. That was for Jerry Seinfeld to find out later, not for my father. Also, that my father never dated a 7.
Oh, he's suggesting Terry Hatcher sat in his dad's lap, which is funny that the only reason he knows this story, if it's even true, is because his dad told it to him. So his dad's obviously proud of it.
17-year-old when he was in his 30s, like a Seinfeld did in the 90s. Pay more attention
and
to
I gave him
the
free medical advice.
Old thing. It's not American, it's an international thing. George Clooney, he's been like mostly living out of Italy now, even with his lawyer wife, especially knowing how gropey and how non-consensual Italian women and men are. And any man or woman is probably likely to start randomly open mouth kissing you, as well as opening your shirt and massaging your...
That, I don't know what he's talking about. Been to Italy twice. Never saw that. I've been all over Italy. No one was just randomly open mouth kissing strangers. That was not occurring there. So Kendall has a warped view of the world here.
Your chest and balls and grabbing your ass. Women, as from the range of teenage women to elderly women or men, will be there and start just saying hello and kissing you and molesting you. Ask my father about women that looked like teenage Monica Bellucci's and women that looked like 90-year-old bags. All of them full on going full Harvey Weinstein on him. Sounds
like your dad has a lot of tall tales that he tells you and you just believe them. It's kind of embarrassing.
We'll get him on the mic to explain this one about visiting.
I used to go with Santa Monica Track Club to Europe every summer. And when we went to Rome every summer, you literally just walking down the street, go to a cafe, these chicks would just grab your ass.
Look at how happy he looks hearing this story. Yeah!
Well, one introduced herself by grabbing my right butt cheek, and then she just took me back to her house, and, we spent some time. She was teaching me about the ways of Rome, and...
Oh my God, this story is so cringy. Yep, she grabbed my ass, then she took me home, we had a time. She was showing me the ways of Rome. Oh my God. It's so cringy. Wow. I'm like sweating listening to this because it's so bad. And the look on Kendall's face. Ha! That's my dad! Ha!
She took advantage of me. Or maybe I took advantage of her, but whatever it was fun. And then the next summer I came back to Rome and had more fun.
Recessive and retarded. Yes, we are taking that word back around here. It's retarded. He's retarded.
What do you mean you're taking it back? Does that mean like you are and you're going to take it back? Because that's normally what taking it back means, right?
Never realized Selena Gomez had that good of a bikini body. Well, she certainly has the little Latina heat. Selena Gomez is beautiful. Yes, indeed. She's quite the Mexican rose.
Oh, my God.
The lusty desert flower, which the señorita.
He has to like comment on the race of women he's attracted to if they're not white. It's very strange.
That make he
It's kind of like how he's like, oh, you don't like Eric July and a successful black man. Everyone, please like the stream, by the way. Give us a big like. Thank you.
Fire. If Selena Gomez goes at least 3 hours without some dick, then she will start sexually molesting trees and street signs and lampposts. A lot of times these days when it comes to new people I don't recognize, people coming into streams that I've not seen in other streams I've been talking to because of the likes of the Drunken Peasants or Vito.
He's always crying about us.
Not Vito, Vosh having all kinds of creepy stalkers and trolls coming into my streams or whatever because they don't like what I have to say about their little douchebags.
Does he think Vosh knows who he is?
Follow. I'm guessing the Drunken Peasants didn't like seeing me positively praise Eric July's success with his Rippaverse comics.
No, we just think you're fucking hilarious and cringy and tismy and that's why we were laughing at you defending Eric July, not that you like Eric July. Do you understand the difference? Because there's people like you and Sturgis and a lot of the other Eric July fanboys, you're all kind of like this. You're all very similar.
So then they started coming in and either like trying to pick a social media fight with me and then realizing even in a verbal social media status, it was like a one-legged midget picking a fight with Dalton from Roadhouse. So that's why when it comes to new people coming into the streams, they're always nice. And well, luckily, when it comes to those type of trolls, usually they are so stupid about it that they immediately come and introduce themselves with thinking that they're cool or slick and bringing up something to do with the Drunken Peasants or Vosh. Like Vosh wants to be a horse so he can go and, quote unquote, pleasure women. I'm pretty sure that if you did word association and mentioned the movie Freddy Got Fingered, he would say best porn of all time. Fat little dipshits like Vito Gesualdi who can explicitly say that there should be more sympathy out there for criminals and not their victims. The little fat bastard has no response, so he just clips off and away from the stream. All the women there in the stream who saw that calling him a pussy. Little cheer right there. They're the kind of guys who they need the social media realm because if they try to go and do any of that shit against any remotely athletic person away from their computer chair, their ass would be grass. And if a Vosh or a Vito Gesualdi spouted that shit in front of them...
I think he's just mad because he doesn't have a computer chair. He sits on this leather couch, and then other times I see him, like, either sitting or standing in front of a door.
Then they would know what it's like to be Seth Green's character in Idle Hands and have a beer bottle planted in their empty little fucking skull. I would just hope that somebody would be there to film...
All these obscure pop culture references, also.
Film it or at least take a picture so I can then laugh at their pain. So then finally, there would be some justice served against worthless human piles of garbage like that. I've got many specific ideas about how Vito and Vosh would get their just desserts. Probably enough just desserts to fill up a whole dictionary. That'd probably be something that I should save for members-only content. Oh yes, I'm not some hillbilly with a mustache who's talking about NASCAR or GameStop all day long and getting super chats fired at me from a cannon every other second, or looking like I'm suffering from alcohol poisoning every second of the day and glaring off camera because I fell down in some animal costume at a theme park and getting thousands of dollars a stream. Literally, I know I have to jump through absolute hoops. Pretty much, I know it's still a matter of getting up there to that level of success is running uphill with cinder blocks.
You can see Alan reclining.
Nail gunned to my hands.
It's weird. He does his stream with his dad sitting... Like, if you're going to have your dad on your stream with you, he should just be on camera with you, too. If he's going to be sitting right there talking to you, and we can, like, kind of hear him.
That is fun.
She taught me the ways of Rome.
Fun. Oh, yes. Because we can't all just have, an audience handed to us by being a little douche like Vosh or by, clinging on to the success and popularity years ago of The Amazing Atheist, like what happened with the Drunken Peasants, where if it wasn't The Amazing Atheist, do you think either of those fat little douches would have anything? The one who looks like Iron Liz or the one who looks like Chris Chan? No, not at all. So felines, slam it, lick it, suck it, and see you, Space Cowboy.
What a fake smile. Yeah, he's a heavy name dropper. What a silly little man. He's so silly. All right, now I'm going to watch some news stuff. Let's see what we've got here. I guess I'll play the news intro.
He called me sir. It got me so human angry.
People are discriminating against wolves.
Wow. They're laughing at us, at our stupidity.
All right, here we go. We got some news videos. Let's see what they are. Some of them aren't labeled right for me because my video downloading software that I use to like batch download videos isn't working for some reason. So some of these I can't see the titles of them. Let's see what this one is.
Lawmakers in the Democratic Party still have concerns when it comes to President Biden's abilities. The Washington Post and NBC News report that Virginia Senator Mark Warner is working to assemble a group of senators to ask President Biden to exit the race. 10 on your side's Markeisha Jackson joins us now with more on this. Markeisha.
Yeah, Lena, still lots of uncertainty as to what a move like this could do to the Biden-Harris campaign. I spoke with a local political science professor to understand why some in the Democratic Party feel so concerned and what could potentially be next for President Biden.
The waters to the 2024 presidential election still look murky, while President Joe Biden
I'm staying in the race.
Still has his eyes on the prize. Some of his Democratic Party members, on the other hand, are not so sure.
And that's causing people like Senator Warner to really start thinking about options because of all the uncertainty.
Money, 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 money. Now we're at 50%. And as of right now, your mom, I guess, is in first place for the figure. But I'm hoping I get enough donos for the figure to at least cover the cost of shipping for it. So,
according to the Washington Post, Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner is attempting to assemble a group of Democratic senators to ask the president to exit the race.
It's not out of the kind of realm of possibilities for this to have occurred.
Old Dominion University political science professor Dr. Benjamin Molesky says after a shaky debate performance, some Democrats aren't sure that Biden can run a campaign that could beat his challenger, former President Donald Trump, while others, like Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, told 10 on Your Side he believes he can.
Joe Biden says to me, I've got this.
This is the guy that ran as Hillary's running mate, right? So I don't really care what his opinion is, honestly. He's just an establishment Democrat, pretty old guy.
I believe him because he has never once done anything that would make me question his patriotism or judgment.
His patriotism, I don't really care about that. It's about whether or not he can think clearly because of his age, not his patriotism. Okay. What a weird diversion. Oh yeah, we should still run Biden because, he's patriotic.
Dr. Molesky says a group of senators possibly addressing Biden directly could be the push that brings this all to a head, as there is no time.
Yeah, he's one of the last people whose opinion I would care about on this issue.
To waste.
There is potential that a president, can turn around a poor debate performance. Stepping away from the election, it's a bit of kind of...
Well, yeah, the issue with that is that we don't get another debate to see how much better he can do before he's nominated.
Uncharted waters at this close to the election event, especially this close to the nominating conventions.
And something to keep in mind, the Democratic convention will be held in August, with the Republican convention happening in about 2 weeks. So experts believe a decision could happen sooner rather than later. Markeisha Jackson, 10 on Your Side.
Thank you, Markeisha.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer's new book is out today, and political reporter Rick Albin talked with her about the implications of the book, the current uncertainty about Joe Biden and her political future.
Rick joins us now with more on the governor's response. Rick?
Well, the governor has steadfastly denied that she's running for president still.
She kind of looks like she had some cosmetic surgery done. Something looks different about her face. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. She looks different than she did a couple years ago. Does anyone else see that?
Outward appearances show a Michigan governor who has raised her national profile, traveled to lots of states, been raising some money, no doubt, spent a lot of time in Washington.
Yeah, she's looking different.
And has become a name often mentioned for the White House. Now, many may expect that to happen in 4 years. But what about this year? Will there be an opening? This book comes out a week before the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, there's something different here.
A few weeks before the Democratic National Convention. Could be a happy coincidence, but some cynical reporters don't believe in coincidence. And I know that you have made it a point to say you're supporting Joe Biden. and I trust that you stick with that assessment. But things continue to be a little rocky.
Yeah, like 4 years ago, this is what she looked like. Like, your face wouldn't normally change that much in 4 years unless you had some kind of work done. Her face looks way different. I know this isn't that important. I was just like, why does her face look... Like, I used to think she was kind of good looking. And now I'm looking at her and I'm like, she does not... Like, in my opinion, cosmetic surgery, a lot of times, it does not make people look good. In my opinion. It's only 4 years. She shouldn't look this different in 4 years. She's not King Cobra.
For this president, and there are more Democrats, some U.S. senators, Brown in Ohio, Murray in Washington, saying we need to see more or we need a different assessment. Where are we in this process? And this will be the 7th time I've asked you in 2 years, so forgive me. Will you tell me today that unequivocally, if this ticket changes, if Joe Biden steps down on his own accord or not on his own accord, that you will not be a part of the process to replace it?
Yes, I can tell you that unequivocally, Rick. And
so she's not running. Big surprise. I'm not surprised. I didn't think she would. No one actually is going to, even the people that are willing to run, they're not going to step up right now. They got to wait and see how many people are willing to support them if they were going to oppose Biden somehow. And they might wait for the party establishment to kind of make their move first to push him out of the way. I don't think that's happening. I think Biden's going to run. If the polls are right, he's going to lose. But it looks like a lot of the polling has pretty much anyone else they can consider right now losing, but some of the polling suggests other people wouldn't lose as badly. So, I don't know.
I've made a commitment to serve out my term as governor, and I am going to keep that commitment. And I would also point out that it also happens to be Shark Week. So for all the people that have theories about why this came out now, if you reach out...
She has that Michigan accent. It's almost like Wisconsin.
After 10, there is a link to Shark Week, too.
And let's stop there with the Shark Week. I don't want to talk about the tattoo. Final political question. You convinced that Joe Biden can stay on?
It's like she had like fillers or something. Something's different about her face. And I liked the way she looked before.
The ticket and beat Donald Trump?
I am. Joe Biden has delivered for this country. I think he's got a lot of work to do. Without question, we got a lot of work to do in Michigan and a handful of other states.
New polling out today in the Emerson College, The Hill, and Wood TV show Whitmer trailing Trump by 10 points in a hypothetical matchup. But things at the top of the Democratic ticket seem to remain fluid. Next few days could create an entirely different environment for the 2024 race.
All right, let's see what else we got.
Former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail today after being out of the public spotlight for more than a week. He will host a campaign rally in his resort in Doral, Florida, just outside of Miami. And he's expected to be joined by Senator Marco Rubio, who is one of the people on his short list for vice president. The former president called into Fox News last night to discuss his thoughts on a possible VP pick.
I haven't made final decision, but I have some ideas as to where we're going.
You know, he's holding off on this. First of all, he doesn't want to take the focus off of Biden right now. All the focus is on Biden and how people are concerned about him and how, there are people within the party making moves to get rid of him. And he's not going to do anything to distract from that if he can help it. And it's weird that he has that level of self-awareness, or at least his handlers are handling him very well. But, so anything he does, if he chooses a running mate, that's going to be the top news story. Like, literally, when he chooses his running mate, that'll be the number one news story that day. Unless something crazy happens. You know what I mean? But more than likely. And then people will see it. And if it's a person that part of his supporters don't like, it might hurt his polling a little bit. You know, if he picks a bad running mate, I don't know, he picked Mike Pence to appease the establishment Republicans. Is he not going to make that mistake this time? Is he going to choose a MAGA VP that matches him a little more closely? I don't think it's going to be Ramaswamy. There's a lot of people who are not going to vote for him because of his race and his religion. And Coulter told him that, like, explicitly, like, I like you and I agree with almost everything you say, but I would never vote for you for president because you're an Indian, is what she said. But by the way, Ramaswamy he was not born in India. He was born in Ohio. So...
And a little bit, you know, we wanted to see what they're doing to be.
I think having Tim Scott I think on the Republican side, having a black running mate will hurt them with some of their voting base.
Honest, because, you know, it might make a difference. I don't know. I'm not sure that it would, but there are those that say Trump's waiting until he finds out what's going to happen with crooked Joe Biden, and we'll see what happens with Biden.
Nope, it's not going to shoulder racism accusations. The actual racists that vote for Trump won't, like, some of them will be like, no, Trump is old. I don't want a black president. You crazy? Like another one? Oh, yeah. It will hurt him in some ways. He needs a white Christian, maybe a younger white Christian. That's who you run. It doesn't matter if they think they're racist or not. They still do racist things, and that includes not voting for. That includes, like, questioning if the only black president we've ever had so far is actually an American. You're not thinking this through. All right.
Let's bring in CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi in Miami. So who does the former president have on his VP shortlist? And any inkling of when we're going to hear his announcement?
Yeah, Lindsay, it's the question I keep being asked. Who is he going to pick and when are we going to find out about it? Some senior campaign advisors that I've talked to have told me it could come as soon as 10 minutes from now or even 1 minute before the convention. We really don't know when this is going to happen, how it's going to happen.
Yeah, look at all the other ones. Rubio, I guess, technically is a minority, but, I mean, he's like white Hispanic, basically. There's, like, you know, because you can be white and Hispanic. So we've got 3 white guys. It might be J.D. Vance. It might be. J.D. Vance is younger than me. They might pick him because he's more MAGA than the rest of them too. That might be he might surprise us though. He might pull a McCain, like McCain just had picked like Sarah Palin, which also hurt his campaign because a lot of people in his voting base didn't want a woman to be vice president. Like literally the main job of being vice president is to take over the presidency when you need to. So any vice president, you should really think there is a real chance, especially with how old these guys are, that they will be president. There's a good likelihood they could be president. They could just be handed the presidency in the blink of an eye. And it scares the shit out of a lot of Republican voters to have anyone but like a good white Christian man at the helm like that.
And then you even heard him last night on Hannity kind of teasing that he doesn't even know who he's going to pick yet. So all of this is up in the air. It's part of the speculation. They want to keep the gig going a little bit. But we do have some clues as to who he is thinking about. Marco Rubio, as you mentioned, the senator from Florida. We're in his home state. Trump is holding a rally here tonight, and he will be in attendance. He is one of those top 3 vice presidential contenders that we have heard about.
He cannot pick Elon, ya mum. I'll forgive you for thinking that because you're like from Australia. You have to be born in the United States to run for president. Elon is not a natural born citizen. He can not be vice president. You have to be eligible to be president to be vice president, and Elon is not.
Time and time again. Another person we have heard about is Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. What's interesting is that later this week, Donald Trump is going to go to Pennsylvania and hold a rally there that's just about an hour away from the Ohio border. So a little bit interesting there. And then we also hear
Yep, you don't have to be born in the U.S. to be in the Senate. Just president.
about North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. He's someone that Trump is also considering. So those three names are the ones you need to remember. But it is interesting that Senator Rubio will be here today in Florida with the former president, as we are expected to be just days away from this major announcement.
The Republican National Committee adopted a...
He'll probably do it on Monday. He'll do it on a weekday, like in the afternoon, more than likely.
New party platform similar to the former president's that opposes a federal abortion ban. How significant is this, and what else stood out to you in the platform?
I mean, this is a perfect example of Trump's...
RNC unveils plan to drop federal abortion ban from platform.
Hold on the party. Never forget that when Donald Trump clinched the nomination, the Republican National Committee and the Trump campaign really became symbiotic. They started working together, and members of his top campaign staff went over to the RNC. So it's only natural that the party platform is now going to, reflect what Donald Trump really thinks about,
If I'm thinking right, if I'm thinking like a Trump voter, I would think he would choose J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is like late 30s and has a lot of the MAGA viewpoints. So that's who I would think he would pick, unless it's someone not on that list. Out of those people, that's who I think he would That's who I think he would pick.
Like abortion. And we know that Trump's stance on abortion has three exceptions, and that's rape, incest, and life of the mother.
Well, yeah, you know what? The whole, you diss Trump, there goes your chance. It didn't used to be that way. Obama and Biden talked trash about each other when they were both running for president, and then he picked Biden. And Kamala talked trash about Biden, and Biden picked her for his VP. So it's weird that Trump is like, oh, you made me mad one time. You can't be my vice president. It's such a completely different way of thinking.
Those are things that he has repeated. And more importantly, he says that now abortion restrictions are up to the states. This is key. The reason why this is so important is because Democrats have
such a fragile ego. That's because the ego is what he is more than it. He's 95% ego.
Continually said that if Donald Trump were reelected, he would input a national abortion ban. Trump has said time again he has no interest in doing that, and that is up to the states. But now the party platform is reflecting where his position has been, leaving it up to the states and kind of pulling the rug out from Democrats on that kind of line if the party adopts fully this Trump's opinion on it.
We're hearing more about Project 2025. It's a multi-pronged initiative by a conservative group aimed at essentially laying out a blueprint for the next Republican president. What is this? Why is it causing controversy? And how is the former president reacting?
Yeah, it is interesting. Project 2025 is something that was started by the Heritage Foundation. And really what it is it's a set of policies and a set of personnel that have been vetted, lawyered through, so that if Donald Trump is reelected on day one, he gets into the Oval Office and he can just sign a slate of executive orders that, reflect a conservative agenda and hire a bunch of people that also reflect that conservative agenda. As somewhere along the way, this kind of rolled out of control and it became known as Donald Trump's agenda were he to be back in office. And if you know anything about Donald Trump, he sets his own agenda. So after a while of hearing Democrats talking about Project 2025, and the Biden campaign has really seized on this, making sure that Americans know about it and some of the policy points that are in it, Donald Trump came out on Truth Social and said he has nothing to do with them, he has no idea what they are, and fully denouncing them. But, we'll see come November, December, and January if some of these policy decisions start making their way into what could potentially be a potential second Trump administration if he were to win the election.
All right, I got some more. Here's another
President Biden did his best Monday morning to save himself. He sent a letter to congressional Democrats, and he called it
Mark Cunningham. Okay, Mark.
into Morning
Look at
Joe.
this guy.
No video. Notice, first off, neither of this was spontaneous, unscripted stuff. Letter obviously written in advance. And Morning Joe, all signs were was that he was reading off notes, if not an outright script. More importantly,
I love the bias reporting is too apparent in this. But I mean, they're right to a degree as far as like he's not showing himself and it's all pre-scripted stuff. But the way it's being delivered, like you can tell, like there's a clear bias.
the substance of his arguments is deadly thin. The letter talked about basically he is in it. He is committed to running the rest of the way, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, he won the primary.
Signed to nominate Puking Dog?
It might be. It might be. It might very well be. I want to remind everyone that this limited edition Drunken Peasants figure right here, I'll put myself full screen. This figure right here is up for grabs for tonight's top tipper. Tonight's top tipper will get that sent to you by me. And there haven't been a lot of tips, so I'm hoping that it picks up. We have, I'll tell you right now. So that guy, Jacob, that just donated, he's in first place right now. And then your mom is in second place.
Is 18 million people voted for him there, blah, blah, blah. How can Democrats stand for democracy if they push him aside? No one will have voted for the nominee then. On Morning Joe, he also complained that, the elites are against me, but the people are still with me. In both cases, he talked about how regular voters he's talked to are still with him. When does he talk to regular voters? The president is cordoned off from the public, this one especially, in the basement in the 2020 campaign, and shielded from the press and the public during his whole presidency. As far as democracy goes, well, that might work if he had...
Behemoth is now in first place by $2. So now it's
2025
oh,
is so
shit.
evil that Donald Trump has claimed to know nothing about it, and it says it's ridiculous and abysmal. Funny. How does he know it's ridiculous if he doesn't know anything about it? Also, you should totally talk about taco hats.
No, thank you. Yeah, so now we have Behemoth in first place with $12. Jacob, I think it's Jacob Palak in second place with $10. Your mom in third place with $6.66, and Teddy Rubskin at $5. Those are the top four
fixed
right now.
The Democratic primaries with the cooperation of the elites. They moved South Carolina to the head of the pack from weeks later. They moved other primaries where they expected Biden to do well to the front to make it easier for him to start running the board and otherwise drive out potential challengers. The elites, up until the disastrous debate, were insisting that all the signs of Biden being feeble-minded and confused in public...
When they use the term the elites, they sound like Jared to me.
...were cheap fakes. It's not just the elites either. Biden was losing to Trump before the debate. Nate Silver had him at 2-to-1 odds that Trump would win. The president, with a small circle of aides, basically Jill Biden and Hunter Biden, is doing his best to play it tough, to look strong. But the insiders, especially the members of Congress who are looking at whether to ask...
The aviators are great.
...him to drop, whether to force him to drop, are looking at reality. They're looking at the polls, where he's losing ground even further to Trump. They're looking at the fact that he doesn't do any unscripted events anymore. He did one with George Stephanopoulos Friday night, and he was terrible. Again, incoherent, making no sense, other than saying Almighty God has to ask him to drop before he will. Well, Democrats are praying now that something will happen. They're praying, basically, that Barack Obama, maybe Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, whatever, will go to him and say, you've got to do it. You've got to drop Joe. It's sad, but it's true. In the end, if Biden simply refuses, if he tells Hunter and Jill, don't let those people come in here to talk me out of it, or if they just decide to keep the delegation
I'm
out,
an action figure.
Democrats will have...
Give me the Ben figure.
Okay, so now you're in first place. Now you're in first place, Logic Blaster. So now we have Logic Blaster in first place with $20. Behemoth in second place with $12. Jacob Palak in third place with $10. And then we got two other people that are kind of trailing, but still pretty close.
No choice but to invoke the 25th Amendment to get the VP and half the cabinet to confirm that Biden is unfit for office.
What? Look, they pick like the worst picture where he's in his jammies. Is this AI? Was this drawn by AI? Like he's in his jammies on the phone, like, oh, China's invading Taiwan.
Office. Then he's out of the White House. Kamala's in, and she'll be the nominee. The convention will be free to choose someone besides Biden because he's been declared incompetent. Ample grounds for delegates to change their minds.
I don't believe this will happen, but it'd be interesting if it happened.
Biden is bluffing. He's threatening. He's whining. And it's not going to work.
Nearly 2 miles down Constitution Avenue at the U.S. Capitol, Democrats held a series of high-stakes closed-door meetings. On the House side, they were even asked to check their cell phones at the door. And CBS's Scott McFarland.
It's like Dave Chappelle.
Reports top Democrats are torn on whether President Biden should continue his campaign.
On a sweltering day in Washington.
We are riding with Biden.
Was there conversation about Vice President?
We are riding with Biden.
Was there conversation about Vice President Kamala Harris?
If you just got here, please like the stream. Liking the stream helps out a lot. Thank you.
We are riding with Biden.
The political heat is hovering over the president's top allies.
As I've said before, I'm with Joe.
His surrogates urge colleagues to line back up behind President Biden.
I'm with Joe. He makes me feel young.
You don't sense concern among your colleagues?
I said many of my colleagues have concern, but what the president has done is listened to those concerns, acted on them.
But some of the most powerful Democrats in the U.S. Senate said the president has more work to do to convince skeptical voters and lawmakers.
How much time is left before a final decision has to be made in your estimation?
I can't say. I mean, it isn't like there is a definite deadline here.
In the U.S. House, another Democrat defected. New Jersey Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill said the president should withdraw.
Just advocating as strongly as possible that we have someone.
I love the interviews where they're walking really fast. I've seen ones where they walk fast enough to get away from the reporters.
That can really take that case strongly and energetically to the voters.
Though the president has secured vocal support from the Congressional Black Caucus, Democrats exited.
If it is Biden, I hope Biden will win. I don't want Trump again, but I'm thinking we'll probably just get Kamala eventually if Biden wins. Because even if Biden doesn't pass away or anything, he might, decline to the point where he just can't even pretend that he's doing the job.
Party meeting today without a unified plan.
Are you all on the same page?
No. Are you all on the same page? No.
What do you mean you're not on the same page? They're not even in the same book.
There are still dozens of congressional Democrats who haven't or won't declare their position on the president's re-election. Nora will find out in the coming days if that hurts or helps the president's prospects.
Asking the tough questions, Scott McFarland on the Hill. Thank you.
All right, let's check this out.
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board.
This is crazy right here. So I'm sure they vetted this guy's credentials since this is network news, like primetime network news. But this guy is a neurologist that is an expert in diagnosing Parkinson's. Okay? He hasn't actually examined Biden, but he's going to give an analysis just based on his demeanor and his mannerisms and behavior in general.
Certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the same room as
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, What you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks, have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. Yeah. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's.
Yeah, I've said that, and I agree still. He can't diagnose him. He's giving an opinion on him. So, yes, thank you for reminding me what my position is.
From degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of en bloc turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia, a small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here.
That's quite a statement.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen, if we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arms.
Shuffling gait, that is, I've definitely laughed at the way he walks. He does kind of do the little shuffle thing. They said masked face, and I was talking about how Biden's face is like, it does kind of look like he's wearing a mask.
Swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And en bloc turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. Yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say.
Yeah.
And by the way, another thing I would say is I said you can't diagnose people's mental illness without meeting with them in person and giving them an evaluation. This is Parkinson's. It's not a mental illness. It's a neurological disorder. It's not like diagnosing schizophrenia or something like that.
Right. It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right,
slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you, if you had, and I know you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that, I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's, chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded, mean the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House that are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonism. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
So they do a 4-hour test to test cognitive performance.
You doing this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say as many words as you can in a minute that start with F. Block building, retrieval. I may say cup and have you recall it 3 minutes later. Trail drawing. These are done with a professional PhD in neuropsychology. Has nothing to do with psychiatry. And we can tell if you have vascular.
It's 4 hours long?
4 hour. It's a full day. We tell people bring a snack. It is a full day. And so not the MOCA, which was a bedside test that President Trump took. These are tests that are screening tests. They don't rule in, if you do great.
There's no way to sort of lie in this test, to sort of ace it even though you're sick.
No way. This one it will come out in the wash. For example, if I do the bedside exam to an accountant and I ask them, what's 100 minus 7? Even the worst neurodegenerative patient, if they worked at a high education level or something like that, is going to get that right. But in the 4-hour test, it will come out.
Finally, you said you're a Democrat, you're a doctor. You sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, I'm an American before everything. And I look at it and say, when I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea.
I'm an American before everything. Fuck my children.
Yeah. When they just make outrageous things, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on and they say, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years. My own party had 4 years to find, this was a wreck in slow motion. And they had 4 years to find out of 350 Americans, one person that could take the place. And here we are the day before school trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease.
Dr. Pitts, we thank you for joining Top Story. And again, I know you've never examined President Biden. I want to say that you've never spoken to President Biden, but you're going off what you've seen on television and interviews and all of your expertise.
Yeah.
Doctor, we appreciate that.
Thanks for watching.
Let's see what his name. What is his name again? Let's do some research on this guy. Dr. Tom Pitts. Let's see. Dr. Tom Pitts, neurologist in New York, which makes sense because most of these news programs are based out of New York. I'm just looking for New York. Yeah. Yeah, I'm finding him on like Health Grades, which is like the doctor review site. Right here. Clinical neurophysiology. 10 years of experience from Wright State University. Oh, yeah, that's in Ohio. I thought that sounded familiar. So he's from like Dayton or whatever. It's interesting.
Features of neurodegeneration. Word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemino dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not.
Yeah, he's mentioned that. Yeah, and I've noticed that when Biden wants to turn, he like shuffles his whole body. He doesn't just like look in the direction. Came here because I heard they had chocolate chip ice cream.
Quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia, small.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to bet money on it, what are the chances Biden will step down or be forced to exit the race by the DNC before Election Day?
I think, just to throw a number out there, I would say there's probably maybe like a 10% chance right now based on, I'm not an expert, you know, but yeah, I would probably say, maybe like 10%, not likely right now. So we got Jacob Palak in first place with $40. Logic Blaster in second place with $20. Behemoth in third place with $12. Yamum in fourth place with $6.66. And Teddy Rubskin in fifth place with $5. That's where we are right now.
Oh, monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the...
Oh, it's playing it again. Sorry. Maybe I have Parkinson's. All
right. Fox News alert, President Biden now addressing world leaders at NATO's 75th anniversary summit in D.C. Let's listen in.
Welcome. In 1949, leaders of 12 countries, including President Truman, came together in this very room. History was watching. It had been 4 years since the surrender of the Axis powers and the end of the most devastating war the world had ever known. Here, these 12 leaders gathered to make a sacred pledge.
We can definitely see the decline from 4 years ago when he ran for president and now. So I'm just like, it's going to be at least that much more of a decline over 4 more years, if not worse. But I hate it when people they act like me saying that somehow means I think Trump should win or something. I don't understand that. Joe Biden isn't the only possible person to run against Trump. He just isn't. It doesn't matter if he's the current president.
Defend each other against aggression.
I thought he was too old really to run the last time.
Provide the collective security and to answer threats as one, because they knew to prevent future wars, to protect democracies, to lay the groundwork for lasting peace and prosperity, they needed a new approach. They needed to combine their strengths. They needed an alliance. And here they signed the Washington Treaty and created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the single greatest, most effective defensive alliance in the history of the world. Mr. Secretary General, leaders of NATO countries, foreign and defense ministers, representatives from partner nations and the European Union, and members of Congress, distinguished guests, welcome to the 2024 NATO Summit. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to host you in this milestone year, to look back with pride at all we've achieved and look ahead to our shared future with strength and with resolve.
Strength.
Together, we rebuilt Europe from the ruins of war, held high the torch of liberty during long decades of the Cold War. When former adversaries became fellow democracies, we welcomed them into the alliance.
Strength. Yeah, it is weird when people say it like that. Strength. I've heard people from New York say it like that. I think it's like a Northeast thing. Because Biden's a Northeastern guy, too.
War broke out in the Balkans. We intervened to restore peace and stop ethnic cleansing. And when the United States was attacked on September 11th, our NATO allies, all of you, stood with us, invoking Article 5 for the first time in NATO history, treating an attack on us as an attack on all of us. A breathtaking display of friendship that the American people will never, ever, ever forget. Through all this history, when great changes occurred, people would ask, can NATO adapt? And every time we proved we could adapt, and we did, evolving our strategies to stay ahead of threats, reaching out to new partners, to increase our effectiveness. And here with us today are countries from the Indo-Pacific region. They're here because they have a stake in our success, and we have a stake in theirs. Today, NATO is more powerful than ever, 32 nations strong. For years, Finland and Sweden were among our closest partners. Now they have chosen to officially join NATO, and because of the power and meaning of Article 5 guarantee, that's the reason. It was the most important aspect of the alliance in 1949, and it is still the most important aspect. I'd also note, Finland and Sweden joined the alliance not just because their leaders sought it, because their citizens called for it in overwhelming numbers. Remember, NATO's character is fundamentally democratic, always has been and always must continue to be. And today, NATO is better resourced than it ever has been. I want to pause on this because it's significant. In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies were spending 2% of their defense GDP on defense. This year, 23 will spend at least 2%.
All right, let's see what else. That's it. Nothing else good. All right, we're moving on.
We love you, and I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
The president vowing to stay in the race and will try to flip the script on what's been a disaster.
Okay, he did just do a turn right there.
To stay in the race and will try to flip the script on what's been a disastrous week for his campaign.
I'm not going anywhere.
He hit the trail in Madison, Wisconsin Friday.
There's been a lot of speculation. What's Joe going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? What's he going to do? Well, here's my answer. I am running and going to win again.
Poll numbers have shifted away from Biden and towards Donald Trump following last week's debate. 3 major polls from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and CNN all have Biden trailing Trump by 6 points. The president and Vice President Kamala Harris put up a united front on the 4th of July, even as some Democrats are calling for Harris to replace Biden at the top of the ticket. That includes some big-name donors, including Abigail Disney. The Disney family heiress told CNBC she'd be withholding her money until Biden is out.
That's crazy.
She said in part, if Biden does not step down, the Democrats will lose. Of that, I am absolutely certain.
Wow, so I think she's like Walt Disney's granddaughter or something, or like great niece or something like that. Pretty sure. Abigail Disney. Big shot at Disney. Was given tons of money to the Democrats, but now not because of Biden.
Other elected Democrats think there's still time for the party to regroup without Biden.
I think we still have time to put this thing on a winning course. There's every reason to believe that we can beat Donald Trump if we make a smart course correction right now.
The Biden campaign will look to flood the market with a $50 million ad barrage, focusing on events that will be attracting a lot of attention, like the upcoming Olympics and the Republican National Convention. Biden's campaign says they're gearing up for a more aggressive travel schedule. This after the New York Times reported that Biden told Democratic governors this past week he needs more sleep and he has to limit events past 8 o'clock. In response, the White House press secretary told reporters on Friday that Biden works around the clock. Reporting in Washington.
He rocks around the clock too, Daddy-O.
I'm Matt Gelka.
All right, hit the button. All right, everyone, please like the stream if you haven't already. Oh, this is about the radio host that got fired because she accidentally admitted that all the questions for her Biden interview were predetermined and shared with Biden. They were all approved.
Before the president sat down with George Stephanopoulos, he spoke with 2 black radio hosts in the battleground states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Both are with me now. Earl Ingram is the host of the Earl Ingram Show in Milwaukee, and Andrea Lawful Sanders is the host of The Source on
What a weird face he was making.
WURD in Philadelphia. Welcome to you both. Congratulations on such a big week. And Earl, let me start with you. And I'm going to play here the president's
like he's sad.
Answer to your question about his performance in the debate. Here's what he told you.
I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. And but I learned from my father, when you get knocked down, just get back up. Get back up.
Did you hear the version of the president, similar to one we saw the debate, that alarmed so many Democrats? Gauge for me what your exchange was with the president.
Well, you're talking about a person, myself, who has followed the president for over 45 years. I've watched him from a very when I was a very young man to where he is now. Clearly, not just the president, but any person over a 45-year period there's going to be some changes to who they were, as there is with me. I'm not surprised that Joe Biden is not who he was 45 years ago. I am a little surprised that the Joe Biden of today is different from the Joe Biden of 2 years ago, of even a year ago.
How so?
Well, clearly, cognitively, anybody who hears him and knows of him and who he has been will detect that there are some differences in his
very
speech. People attribute that constantly to the fact that he has a speech impediment. He's always had a speech impediment his entire life, but people hadn't been talking about the fact that he has a speech impediment until, the last few weeks. And clearly there's something that is different about President Joe Biden.
Yeah. He says that he will not be taking or releasing a cognitive test. Andrea, let me ask you here about your interviews and something. I listened to both of them, and there's something that's similar here. You each you asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House. But they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview.
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Okay. And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either of you. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove
she got fired for admitting that.
The vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming. Let me play here a bit of your interview. This is, and you've probably seen it's gotten a lot of attention. This is when he was asked about his accomplishments as president. Let's play it.
I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president.
Did you hear, as it's being
to serve with a black president?
Covered, the president say that he was proud to be the first black woman president? Because that's what the headlines all over the internet are suggesting.
I find it interesting that they saw and heard that. What I got from him was that he was intimating that Kamala Harris was the first black woman vice president. And I guess with his speech impediment, they heard something else. And I find it interesting that that was the only thing that they picked out of that entire conversation and ran with it. Look, we have a hard way to go in this country. I am listening to the community that is speaking to me every single day on
He's the first black woman president. That's funny. I wish he did actually say that.
WRD Radio. We are answering, looking at the things that are mattering to us. We can't afford to get excited and fumble and flumble about what folks are thinking about this, the president and his frailty and his speeches. We are concerned about the purging of the government in Project 2025. We have been talking about this on WURD since January, fully and completely. The slashing of the Department of Justice and dismantling the FBI and replacing their traditional independence from political pressure with fealty to the administration. Those are the things that matter to us in the Black community. So when I ask them, what matters most to you, that President Biden has this speech impediment or that he's slowing down versus the other person who has all these other things going on, they keep saying to me, we did it on Friday on The Source, we did it Thursday, we keep asking them, they keep saying the same thing. We want the Democrats to win because we feel like if we do anything else, it's going to be a problem for us. What I'm concerned about is that no one really seems to be in the community talking to the very people who has the vote.
Earl Ingram from Civic Media, Andrea Lawful Sanders from WRD. Thank you both.
Oh, God. We're fucked. We're doomed. We're doomed. We're doomed.
What happened?
Oh, God. I'll watch this some other time. We gotta get through this other shit.
Stop using sunscreen.
Oh, God. This is the anti-sunscreen movement. Here's something about Project 2025.
Meantime, and this is something that hasn't been discussed a whole lot, so we're going to get into something called Project 2025. A leading conservative think tank is weighing in on what a second Trump presidency might look like. Project 2025 includes...
Please like the stream in honor of the end of America.
...includes a massive overhaul to the federal government as we know it. And this is not just rumor. This is all based on actual stated goals that Donald Trump has said over and over again for the past 3.5 years.
He could just step down now and make Kamala Harris president. He doesn't have to run and try to win. Like, I see someone in the chat keep saying he's going to win, and like if he wins, he'll step down. He can just step down right now. He can either step down and just say he's not running again, or he can just leave office and Kamala will run as the sitting president.
Trump promises an unabashedly imperial presidency, one that would turn the Justice Department against critics, deport millions of people in the U.S. illegally, slap 10% tariffs on thousands of products, fire perhaps tens of thousands of government staff deemed insufficiently loyal.
Now, the leader of the group, by way of the Heritage Foundation, is a guy by the name of Kevin Roberts. And this week, he was talking about the whole thing on Steve Bannon's podcast. And if you're watching, you're realizing that the guy you're about to see is not Steve Bannon, but former Virginia Congressman Dave Bratz. That's because Steve Bannon's in prison now. Roberts.
He is yes, he is.
Says he's predicting a, quote, new American revolution. But listen to what he had to say about what it would take to make that happen.
I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the second American Revolution, which will...
Oh, yeah, this is crazy. So, yeah, so they're linking this. This is part of the Project 2025 thing where he's like, it's the second American Revolution and it's up to the other side whether or not it's violent, is what he says here.
Remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
It'll remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
You catch that? Will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. I don't know what kind of point he's trying to make there, but that rhetoric has a lot of people concerned. This is not locker room talk. This is not...
It was locker room talk. I grabbed him by the pussy.
Political rhetoric. This, of course, comes in the same week the Supreme Court ruled that Trump has absolute immunity for, quote, official acts made as president, which means whatever Trump decides to do, should he return to office, there really aren't the same guide rails this time around.
What we should be talking to each other about is not just about an existential threat.
This guy's a Freemason. I see his, he's got like a hat. I think it's a hat. I don't know.
To our children and grandchildren. It's what are you going to do in the next 6 months? Because come January, if Donald Trump is president, our lives will change radically.
Crazy.
Leaders on the right are applauding the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity, including the president of the Heritage Foundation, who says that it's vital to getting the country back, as he gives an ominous warning to the left. Listen.
In spite of all this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
CNN's Kristen Holmes is here. So, Kristen, help us understand what that second American revolution that he's promising entails.
So before we get started, because I'm going to use this magic wall, I just want to note that I've actually never been allowed to touch this before. So please bear with me as we go through this. Okay, so first let's talk about who that person was. Kevin Roberts. He is the head of the Heritage Foundation. The reason why we care about this is a conservative think tank, a very prominent one, but also they are the umbrella organization of what is called Project 2025. And essentially what Project 2025 is that this was set up by not just the Heritage Foundation, but dozens of conservative think tanks from across the country, many of whom have former administration officials of Donald Trump's. And they did this to essentially avoid what happened in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected and there was no kind of...
You hear it on the news a lot, apparently.
Essentially
infrastructure in place, and they had to start from scratch when it came to a transition. They wanted everything to be in place so that a transition would be smooth. Now, the one caveat of all of this, when we link it to the Trump campaign, is yes, they are doing this for a potential Trump administration, but on the other part of this, the campaign has said that anything that comes from anyone other than the campaign is not from the campaign and should not be considered that way. So the reason why I say that is because some of what the Project 2025 has put out there is very controversial. So they basically have these four pillars: policy, agenda, personnel. They're building out a huge network of, basically it was actually described to me as a dating website for conservatives, the kind of infrastructure to match conservatives with jobs in a potential administration, training them to work on day one, what that would look like, and a playbook for what the first 180 days would look like of a conservative administration.
So walk us through this policy agenda.
So basically they have these four parts within the policy agenda of what they say will make America better. And here are some
Make America better again.
The ways that they say they do that. Restoring the family at the centerpiece of American life, protecting our children, self-governance, dismantling the administrative state and returning self-governance to the American people. One of the things we've talked about extensively is one of the plans for, Donald Trump has said this himself as well, but also Project 2025, is to essentially give more power to the executive branch and take some of these government agencies, and that would include agencies like the Department of Justice, and move them under the executive branch. So right now in the Constitution, there's nothing that says that the Department of Justice is separate from the administrative branch. We've just operated like that under essentially decorum for the past several decades. They're saying that shouldn't exist.
Essentially
Anymore. You also have this idea of defending the nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. Obviously, a lot of references here to immigration, but also the idea of an America First policy, kind of ignoring our global allies and focusing on America first. And then liberty, securing our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty.
Yeah, very sort of typical flowery platitude language, but underneath it, it comes with the promise of a reworking of the federal government to specific aims that we haven't seen before.
Well, that would be a huge change in the executive power and give unprecedented amount of power to someone like Donald Trump if he were to win. But the other part of this is, like, when you talk about protecting children and family, this is kind of what they're getting at. Rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status.
Wow. So they want to go back to where it was okay to discriminate against gays and trans and all them.
And sex characteristics, something that we have heard is very much part of the Republican platform.
That is so regressive, because I can remember a time when that wasn't a thing, and now, like, we built progress in society to get to where we are with that, and they want to erase that and go back to, like, no, I don't want the gays working in my business.
All the time, Donald Trump, you hear him say it, that he thinks that women
don't want to rent to the gays. It says gender identity, though. Like, everyone pretty much has a gender identity. Like, cis people, I have a gender identity. So couldn't they just, like... So they can discriminate against, like, any gender. So it's not just, like, LGBT in that sense. Everyone has a gender identity, right?
men shouldn't be in women's sports. They talk about sexual education within schooling. They want that out of any kind of education system. So these are kind of some of what they have outlined here. I believe this is the one. Policies, well, this one would obviously likely apply to Donald Trump here. Prepare a plan to end immediately any policies, investigations, or cases that are contrary to law or administration policies. How exactly would that look? Particularly given what Paula was just reporting about trying to get cases even passed when he was elected. A lot of this stuff, it seems traditional, but it has been very controversial. It seems traditional for Republicans, but it's very controversial and goes pretty far.
And it goes back to that idea of an executive with unprecedented power. Kristen Holmes, you did fantastic for your first time.
I really felt like I was.
How did it feel? It felt good?
Yeah, I felt good. I felt like I was getting the clicks in. So thank you. Thanks for this opportunity.
Of course. We'll do it again.
Yes.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Whew. Did you guys hear about how Danny Trejo, the actor Danny Trejo, got into a fight at a 4th of July parade? He brought like a lowrider and was riding in this parade. And these guys were throwing water balloons at him, so he tried to fight them, but he's like, him and his buddy, they're like in their 80s, and they got their asses kicked by some like younger people that look like gang members almost. Here it is.
Now let's take you back to yesterday. Water balloons were thrown at the classic lowrider Trejo was riding in, and then things escalated. Trejo, of course, is known for his restaurants, Trejo's Tacos, his acting, and his work in the community.
My dad took me away.
At the Pacoima home of actor Danny Trejo.
Yeah, that's me with President Obama. It was so.
Danny Trejo is not Danny Trejo is portrayed as a tough guy. He's a little guy. He's probably like shorter than me. Let me see how tall he is. I'm kind of shocked. I let's see. Yes. Oh my God. He's only 5'6". So he's like 2 inches shorter than me. I was looking at him next to this woman and I'm like, huh.
The Wall of Fame is impressive. It's video of a 4th of July brawl that has the Machete star talking now. The Sunland Tahunga Rotary Club had invited Trejo to ride in its parade. He was there with 3 classic lowriders.
The senators in front of us, and they passed, and then we came, and then bam, all of a sudden our car got hit by a...
You can still be, like, there are UFC fighters that are in lower weight classes that are like 5'6", but they could beat most normal people's asses, even though they're small. So you could, I mean, like back in the day, he was in good shape and everything. He was probably tough. There's tough short guys. It's just weird. I always pictured him as like a big, imposing guy, and he's not like tall at all. Like he's shorter than me, which is so weird. And he's over 80 years old. He's over 80 years old. I believe he passed being 80.
A water balloon.
In the video, you see Trejo exit the car.
He's 80.
Why?
When somebody yelled it was acid, I thought they messed up Tony's car.
Acid like a chlorine smell.
And somebody yelled, "It's acid!" And I panicked. I got out of the car to look, and then a balloon hit me, and then I saw the guy throwing it.
Video shows Trejo approach a man in the crowd. You can see him swing. Things escalate. The man swings as Trejo stumbles and falls.
I hate bullies, and that's what bullies do. You know, they're really cowards. I did this in the 50s and the 60s, and, you know, I'm still doing it. I'm 80 years old.
Mario Castillo was in the lowrider with and behind.
Yeah, his buddy here in the, like, shorts that are, like, down to his shins. Are they, like, Dickie shorts? He's about to get laid out right now.
Trejo's.
Watch.
He feels they were racially targeted.
Boom,
He takes a serious
boom.
punch and
he got laid out.
And falls.
He's old too, though. Maybe this guy might have been tough, 30 years ago.
We weren't there to start no trouble. It was kind of like we're just confronting the people that were throwing balloons. It was a grown man, skinhead, tattoos.
Castillo's arms are all bruised up.
Yeah, I mean, they are starting fights with, like, elderly men.
He says, from being held down.
But they did, like, run up to the guys. I think Danny threw the first punch. Pretty sure. Which is stupid to do when you're 80.
Would you have stayed in the car?
Both of these guys are so little. These guys are little.
Could do it differently and kept going? Well, I'm kind of like Danny. I'm gonna be with my best friend no matter what. What's your overall message?
That, you know what, it's sad that people can wake up in the morning and decide to go down and ruin something for everybody else.
I asked Trejo, would he have done anything differently?
I am a protector. I will protect all my friends, always. And that's what I was doing.
Fox 11 would like to hear from the person that threw those water balloons. Last night, we did talk to a witness who thanked Trejo for coming out to the parade.
Here's some of this weird anti-sunscreen shit. There's a weird pseudoscientific movement, mostly on TikTok, to tell people that they shouldn't wear sunscreen. Like, you're more likely to get skin cancer from not like sunscreen than getting letting just direct sunlight hitting you.
Stop using sunscreen, okay? The sunscreen chemicals seep into your bloodstream after just one day.
Social media influencers are throwing shade on sunscreen, falsely claiming these products hurt your health.
Stop wearing sunscreen because it's terrible for your skin. It's messing up your estrogen levels. It has a lot of bad...
Yeah. Oh, it's messing up your estrogen levels. It's like, what? They don't put hormones in sunscreen? What are you talking about?
Toxic things inside of it.
Some even outlining how to make your own sunscreen right in the kitchen, with clips amassing millions of likes. The trend took off on social media in the last month. It's reflective of a growing shift in how young Americans view sun safety.
A new study by Orlando Health found that 1 in 7 adults under the age of 35 say daily sunscreen use is more harmful than direct sun exposure. That's 14% of the demographic.
Are you seeing an increase in patients who are anti-sunscreen?
100%, and it was not like this before.
Dermatologists like
social media is fucking up here. This is insane. That people, it's like, oh, the TikTok said I shouldn't do this. What? This is insane.
Dr. Janine Downey say they're already seeing more cases of skin cancer in young adults.
2 weeks ago, I diagnosed 3 squamous cells and 2 malignant melanomas in 1 week, along with several basal cell carcinoma. And that's me, just one little dermatologist.
Studied late last year by the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey examined misinformation around sunscreen and sun exposure. First, that sunscreen is cancerous or otherwise harmful, something dermatologists and researchers say is inaccurate.
I have a couple of patients that are like that. They only want the natural things, but I tell them all the time, the level of pollutants in the air on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis is significantly more toxic than any chemical they're going to rub into their skin with sunblock.
Another, that sunscreen doesn't allow the body to receive healthy benefits from the sun.
Is there any healthy amount of vitamin D exposure without sunscreen?
I tell everybody no, because people don't use as much sunscreen as they should anyway. So it's really sunscreen and not sunblock, if I want to be specific, because it's not truly blocking out all of the sun's rays, Megs. It's screening them out.
But while there's no evidence that sunscreens are unsafe, the FDA is now assessing how some ingredients are absorbed into the bloodstream. And dermatologists say the benefits of sunscreen far outweigh any risks and recommend its use.
It's actually protecting you a whole lot more.
Dr. Shireen Idris is a dermatologist in New York, taking the fight against misinformation directly to those platforms.
A beautiful sunscreen.
Posting videos to educate users about different skincare and sunscreen routines.
I think as a viewer, it is so important that you go and look into the sources that your favorite content creator is using before fully adopting or believing what it is that they're saying.
Google Trends show terms like "what does skin cancer look like" and sunscreen are being searched more than ever in the U.S.
That's so interesting.
U.S. Luckily, accurate skincare information is still breaking through for many beachgoers.
How important is sunscreen to you? It's very important because on my face, I like to make sure I don't get skin cancer.
I feel like it's mildly important.
Yeah.
I don't burn
I
easily,
feel like
so.
face is the most important, and then that's basically it.
Dermatologists recommend wearing sunscreen, reapplying often, using protective clothing with ultraviolet protection factor or UPF, UV visors that protect face, neck, and chest, and avoid prolonged exposure in direct sunlight between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Everyone, please like the stream, and a quick reminder here, I'm giving away one of these figures to the top donor tonight. It's a really close right now. We have Jacob Palick in first place with $40. We have Logic Blaster in second place with $20, and Behemoth in third place with $12. Very close.
What happened at Cleveland's Balloonfest 86?
This is really interesting because in 1986 in Cleveland, they set the world record for letting go of balloons. Like, they released balloons into the sky. And there were all these YouTube videos talking about what a disaster it was. But this guy actually researches it and finds out that it's all being sensationalized on the internet. It's actually like all of the stuff that people have been putting out there is actually not true.
Let's see what's on the internet. Nathan says it was more tragic than anyone could have imagined. Oh man. Zach D calls it a fatal disaster. The result was mass chaos. Christian says there was millions of dollars of property damage, many injuries? Wow, it looks like Balloonfest was a catastrophe. But here's what I can't figure out. Why didn't Cleveland's newspaper at the time mention any of this? Why, 37 years later, did the editor of that same newspaper tell me there was a bigger story here? It's what led me to interview the actual organizers of Balloonfest to fact-check the 5 most popular beliefs about the event.
It didn't actually kill anybody.
Makes me nervous.
It did not kill anybody. You guys all have misinformation.
Because who am I to tell documentary filmmakers, popular YouTubers,
the balloons were all made out of biodegradable material,
and media outlets that they're all wrong? If you've never heard of Balloonfest, here's an 80s.
They also contacted Canadian wildlife officials there and confirmed through documentation that there was not this crazy huge cleanup. Yeah, you guys all have misinformation.
Montage of never-before-seen footage. September 27th, 1986 was a wild day in Cleveland, Ohio. Over 1,800 students packed inside this 3-story box the size of a city block. They pushed their patience and their fingers to the breaking point as they filled up nearly 1.5 million helium balloons, a world record. But Balloonfest was involved in another record that's never talked about. It kicked off that year's United Way fundraising campaign, and the community donated a record $47 million to the charity. That's over $130 million in today's money. So when the balloons were released in front of the largest crowd in downtown Cleveland since the end of World War II, Northeast Ohio celebrated. Young Clevelanders had come together to achieve something for a good cause. In the eyes of the 1980s, Balloonfest was a smashing success. Then came the weather. Even though the organizers had released the balloons early to avoid incoming rain, some unforeseen mishaps dampened the celebration. But Balloonfest was going to fall victim to a different kind of storm. One that rolled in 30 years later.
Yeah, it was a trendy thing that people were doing in the 80s.
If I can prove that all these people are wrong, it points to a deeper problem with how stories spread on the internet. It's time to hear the real story of Balloonfest, starting with why United Way attempted the Guinness World Record in the first place.
I'm on a flight to Los Angeles for a United Way meeting. The centerfold of Life magazine was this incredible photograph of 1 million balloons released for Disneyland.
So just before they did it in Cleveland, they set the record in Disneyland for 1 million balloon release.
It was magnificent. And the small hairs on the back of my neck rose when I saw that. And the seed of the idea was planted in my brain at that time. This would be awesome for young people to do. So when I got back to the office, I started doing some research. Google wasn't around then, to find out who was the person that actually pulled this off. And I came upon Treb Heining's name. And I called him.
And he said, you're the one that did the release in Disneyland. I said, I am. He said, well, I'm George Fraser. I'm with the United Way of Cleveland, and we want to do that here. George had something in his voice. I said, okay.
So he laughed. He was very nice. He said, Mr. Fraser, that's impossible. You have no idea what it took, and Disney was behind it. I said, Treb, if anybody could top your record, it would be you.
We set up in a meeting in Cleveland. And we went around and we looked at the convention area. We looked at Public Square, which had just been a brand new transformation of Public Square. And I went back to my office and we started drawing up some ideas.
I put together a presentation. There was a board meeting. Now, the board of United Way at that time were all of the CEO presidents and chairmen. And I mean, it was the creme de la creme, fundamentally white males. And when I finished my presentation, you could hear a rat piss on cotton in Georgia. And I remember
what a weird expression.
Jim Stover, who was the president of the Eaton.
You could hear a rat piss on cotton in Georgia. I don't get the like in Georgia thing.
At that time. He says, Mr. Fraser, that's a big idea, but I think that's impossible to do that. I said, Mr. Stover, let me address impossibility. The beauty of this idea, not only will it involve a couple of thousand young people, but I think morally and spiritually, philosophically, will demonstrate to the world, and certainly to Clevelanders, that when people work together, East Side, West Side, black, white, and Hispanic, that we can make the impossible possible. He said, that's the greatest little pitch I've ever heard. He said, I think you're right. Let's do it.
With the green light given, George and Treb found out they had something in common, the desire to go big. Instead of just breaking the Disneyland record, they wanted to double it. To scale up that much, someone had to invent a way to fill, hold, and release balloons that had never been done before.
We had 1,000 tubes of 1,000 balloons for Disney, but there was no way that was going to work any bigger than that. One of our key engineers, a man named Bill
The
Chappelle,
music is weird.
Had come up with this concept of the bin. So it was up to me to figure out how to get it done. You can calculate the lift on a balloon. X amount of cubic feet of helium gives you X.
Yeah, they had to create this whole structure to hold them down, because it turns out when you have over 1 million balloons, it has quite a bit of lifting power.
Amount of lift, and we said, we need something that can hold 25,000 pounds of lift. So I said, well, we need a net. What is the most sophisticated net that could possibly exist? Just off the top of my head, I said, who did the cargo nets for the space shuttle, I wonder?
Tom Hollowak tracked down the manufacturer, West Coast Netting, in Los Angeles. He walked in with his sketch of a 200-foot wide structure and asked owner Bill Kirkland if a net could hold 25,000 pounds, about the weight of 6 cars, without breaking.
You guys are the net people. Let's figure this out. And that was really when we knew it could be done.
With a plan on paper, the next step was seeing if people would buy in. In 1986, Cleveland could be described as a once-great city down on its luck.
They called Cleveland the mistake on the lake.
Manufacturing jobs had dried up, and the town was still reeling from national embarrassments.
Yeah, because their river caught on fire.
People were drawn to anything that could lift their spirits.
The key to understanding the 1980s in Cleveland lies in the 1970s. The 70s were arguably the worst decade in Cleveland's history. A mass exodus from the city, the population plummeted. Its reputation had hit rock bottom.
Well, that was it after the Cuyahoga River burning and the mayor's hair catching on fire and all those
mayor's hair catching on fire.
Fun-filled events that happened back in the 70s. Yeah, they were looking for it to be the all-American city.
I remember when Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire.
Timing was perfect to try something like this. There was a lot of things they tried in the 80s because we were trying to erase in the nation's mind what happened here in the 70s.
Everywhere I talked to people, they said...
So yeah, they got volunteers from the local high schools and got them to like fill and tie all the balloons.
Don't want to be thought of as a mistake on the lake anymore. This is our chance to hold our head up high. What it comes down to is say, okay, Disney did 1 million balloons.
I'm not from Cleveland.
Cleveland is going to do 2 million.
I've only been to Cleveland a few times in my life.
I became almost like a representative of the people of Cleveland. I really wanted it to work for them.
It was one thing for people to like the idea. It was another thing for someone to get up at 3 a.m. on a Saturday and tie balloons for 8 hours. Carol Horn had organized volunteers in the 1985 Disneyland release. Now Treb Heining sent her to Cleveland to begin contacting high schools.
I don't really remember an enthusiasm about breaking the Disneyland record, but just doing something that gets us, that gets Cleveland and these kids being part of it into the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, the Guinness Book of World Records mattered way more back then than it does now. And balloon launches were a very trendy thing in the 80s. I remember being part of a small one with my school did one. My elementary school did a balloon launch where like every student in my school, there was probably like a couple hundred students at my elementary school. We all like launched balloons. There's probably like, I don't know, like 500 students at my elementary school. I'm just guessing.
They pitched it as helping out United Way, plus they also pitched it that, about the Guinness Book of World Records with the number of balloons and just being a part of something like that. And, that we would be helping out that endeavor as well as helping out United Way.
So Carol organized meetings. I would come back and we would peel off maybe 3 or 4 a day, where I would go to large auditoriums filled with the students, put on a presentation with slides and music of all the things I had done with balloons. We had just done the Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. I had a lot of things under my...
Our balloons that we launched in my elementary school had tags on them that said where they came from and which student had the balloon. And a few people who found the tags sent them, like mailed them in and like wrote a letter about where they found it. And usually it was like miles and miles and miles, because they go up really high. So they travel quite a distance when they fall back down.
I dealt with Super Bowls and things like that. And then I show the students primarily what they're going to need to do, which is tie just 3 balloons per minute. And then I would say to them, is this something you guys think you can do? And it was like, yeah, we can do it. Okay, so we have this school, and we start checking them off, And the deal with the schools, and the students might not have known this, but we gave each school a nice honorarium. That came out of my budget, my way of giving back to the arts and the music program.
Carol Horn only had 6 weeks to sign up as many as 2,500 students. At the same time, the United Way had to start getting approval from city leaders, beginning with the building department.
Normally building inspectors don't...
This guy's this is so common. Yeah, this guy has his Ohio State button-up shirt right now.
Don't have to worry about a building.
So common. It's like, it would be like a dressy shirt, but it says Ohio State on it too.
Taking off and flying away, the amount of lift that would be provided by 2 million balloons was something that they never really had to calculate before.
The building department insisted that the bin be held to the same standards as a permanent structure, meaning that an engineer had to certify that it would withstand wind speeds of up to 90 miles per hour. While waiting for a structure...
So it had to, meet the standards of a building. The thing that was temporary, that they were built... I know exactly where this happened, too. I have been to where this launch happened, decades after.
Engineer to revise his plans, Tom Hollowa contacted...
That building right there is called Tower City. And there's actually been a few movies. You know the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter movie? Part of that was filmed in this building because there's a mall in the building, and there were parts of it that were filmed in it. Ridiculous.
The FAA to ask about the airspace above downtown Cleveland.
We couldn't have done this event unless I had talked to the Federal Aviation Administration. I said, there's literally an airport right next to where we're going to release the balloons. What is that going to do? And they said, oh, well, Burke Lakefront is really just civil aviation. It's people with Cessnas. They don't run commercial flights out of there. What we'll do is we'll issue a NOTAM. It's basically a no-fly zone. This event was treated...
Yeah, they had to shut down the small airport nearby.
With downtown being designated as a no-fly zone. We couldn't have done the event if the FAA had put their foot down. But again, they cooperated in a way that you would not expect from a governmental agency necessarily.
As government agencies seemed ready to help the effort along, the business sector followed suit. Coca-Cola signed on as a major sponsor.
You know, Cleveland loves the Browns, their football team, so much, but there was a point where the Browns were like the shittiest team, for lack of a better term, the dookiest team in football. So the owner moved the Browns to Baltimore, and they became the Baltimore Ravens. And they won a couple Super Bowls right after they moved, too. And there was no Cleveland Browns for 4 years or so, maybe even longer. And then Cleveland got a chance to get another team, and I was like, here's their chance to just create a whole new team identity. They've been trash for so long, they could create a new name and get new team colors and everything. The Cleveland Browns were dead. There was no longer a Cleveland Browns for several seasons, but then they just chose to be the Browns again, and they haven't done shit since. Yeah, the Cleveland Balloons. That would have been... I don't know which one I like better, that or Browns.
Along with Kodak. Other companies like Xerox, IBM, and Kmart also expressed interest. Taco Bell even hatched an idea.
That's an old school Taco Bell. The first Taco Bell I ever went to looked like this. And they had all these, I'm guessing they're Aztec, maybe Mayan. They had it was weird because they try to look like an actual Mexican restaurant back then. They had Aztec or Mayan art hanging from the walls.
Idea to bring in dozens of workers to build the world's longest burrito. Balloonfest had caught on in Cleveland.
By that time, it was a big idea, and people are excited about things bigger than themselves.
The big reason George wanted to do it was getting youth involved with...
Taco Bell is trash, by the way. Back then it was better. It was never, great. But back then it was definitely better. With a lot of these places, the quality of the food has declined. I don't know if it's the best or the worst example, but the example that comes to mind the most, where the decline has happened the most, is Subway. I remember going to a Subway in the late 80s, and it was delicious and fresh and everything. And then now Subway is the worst fast food restaurant. Subway, I would not care at all if Subway just went away forever. I haven't eaten Subway in a very long time. I would much rather go to Jimmy John's or Quiznos or whatever.
Doing something not for themselves. In other words, raising money for other people, having a bigger cause.
As the design and planning phase finished, a decision was made to reduce the balloon goal from 2 million to 1.5 million. With new schematics approved, a quadrant of public square was shut down to make way for Balloonfest. The scaffolding structure began taking shape in early September.
During the week, people walking by, huh?
This cop admits, because I've watched this video before, this cop admits that when people were asking, what are they doing here? That he was just, fucking with them, and he would be like, oh, it's the return of Andre the Giant, or no, he says, the return of Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy. which was a huge match back in the day, Hulk Hogan versus Bundy.
Everybody wants to know what it is. They're all curious. We tell them anything from the Dome Stadium to the Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy return match.
As the project gathered attention outside of Cleveland, the stakes grew higher. A United Way mailer described it this way: Public Square will be transformed into a stage upon which the rest of the country's eyes will be fixed. With that kind of spotlight...
I mean, look at this. It was a big deal. Look at how many people were there. You know, this probably had the record for the amount of people in this space right here up until Cleveland won the NBA championship when they had LeBron James. They won the championship in the... for those of you who are not fans of sports ball, basketball is one of the few sports where like one player on the team can like carry a whole team. And I'm saying like the other players, they did their part, but they wouldn't have won a championship unless LeBron was there. So they had LeBron and then they had some decent players on their team. Cleveland was always a shit basketball team. Always.
The last thing the city could stand was another national embarrassment.
You know, we had the whole world watching, or certainly much of the nation watching, this Balloonfest trying to break this record. There were jokes all the time, sometimes on network television. Comedians would laugh about Cleveland. I think we were struggling with who we were.
Cleveland was trying to reinvent itself, but there was this lingering reputational issue. And Balloonfest was a natural, not an especially expensive way of doing it, was bound to attract a lot of attention.
The hopes of a city, months of hard work, and a $500,000 project price tag were riding on the shoulders of the organizers when the weekend of Balloonfest arrived. What few people at the time realized was how close the entire event was
Balloonfest
to
caused
never happening.
Hiroshima.
The night before, I was staying at the Stover Hotel right there overlooking the bin. Everything was set up. We had inflatables all around the edge of the bin because the idea was the inflatables were going to lift
did
the
9/11.
sides of the net and then the balloons would release. And all of a sudden I heard something outside that sounded like a diesel engine or something like that. I look out the window and I see the wind.
They have those newspaper dispensers on the corners at Terminal Tower. And I saw one of those stand up on one foot and start to twirl around like a top and then get blown away.
And one side of the bin...
So they had like the worst weather imaginable. And this is where the people that were out on the lake that got lost, this plays into that. They had one of the worst storms you could ever imagine the night before the launch.
That was there was flapping. The inflatables were popping off like popcorn, just gone.
The estimate was that it probably did gust to somewhere between 60 and 90 miles per hour.
And it damaged the netting that was tied to the bin. And unless that was repaired, there would be no balloon release.
I was devastated at that point. Here it is, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we had worked for so many months on this event. And I said, you know, I've been very lucky in my career, lots of outdoor events. We've always been very fortunate. I said, but I believe our luck has run out. The crew looked at me and said, hey, you go to bed, get some sleep. We'll take care of this. We're gonna go.
Tom Hollowak and the Balloon Art crew pulled an all-nighter, working feverishly to repair the net and the tarp. At 3 a.m., volunteers and students began arriving at Public Square, but it was unclear whether the bin would properly hold the balloons.
Project Balloonfest. What month is it? September 27th, 1986. First of 1,500,000 balloons to be done on Public Square here in downtown Cleveland. It's up.
He tied it very fast. That guy knows his way around a balloon. All right, I'm going to go take a bathroom break really quick, and then I'll come back and we'll watch the rest of this. And I got more stuff. By the way, the thing is up for grabs. Don't be worried about taking it away from someone else. All right? All you need to do, if you haven't already donated tonight, all you have to do is drop a 50 and you're in the lead to get this. And I'm trying to raise money right now anyway, so if you want to help support the show and get something like this shipped to you, a figure. People like figures. They do. So the person in first place right now has $40. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. You all got dimensionally merged. All right, let's I'm curious about I generated an AI song a second ago. It's part of the Shabisky Calypso collection. I just want to hear this really quick.
Shabisky banana, he is a male hooker, making love to Shelly to get some booger sugar. And then his pimple slap him for not getting this cut. And if he gets too mouthy, he will stretch out his butt. Turning the trick, Shabisky, selling his ass the frisky. Turning the trick, Shabisky, that's risky.
Interesting. It reimagines it every time. All right, we're back.
The buses started bringing students in at like 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning or something.
I've been messing with calypso. It's fun, like any like random music genre I can think of. I'll put in the parameters and just see what it comes up with.
In the dark.
There was urgency from the moment we walked in. I remember everybody being busy. We were like busy bees, very intent on setting this record.
Everything just started happening. It was great. People were showing up, balloons were being inflated, music was playing.
Once the kids came and started releasing the balloons into the net, we were committed. We thought that we had patched all the holes, but there was one very important one that we had missed all the way in the very center of the net, at the highest point. After enough balloons had been let loose so that it domed up in the center, all of a sudden, balloons started to escape out of the middle of the net. My cherry picker couldn't reach it. I called in a favor. I had the home phone number of the fire chief. He had said, if you ever need anything, just give me a call. It was a very unimportant thing, but he mustered his tallest cherry picker, which was 150 feet. And he sent them down, and one of his firemen, I taught him basic net mending, and they boomed out over that, and they fixed that hole in the top of the dome. And after everything that we had gone through with the microburst and everything like that, if the fire department of the city of Cleveland had not taken this seriously, the event would have failed.
We're reaching about 750,000 balloons right now. We're a little more than halfway. You guys are not only doing it, you're doing it in record time. It's unbelievable. Keep up the good work.
Because those volunteers and they're blowing up those balloons, the people that built everything, it worked like a science.
And as more and more balloons went into the net, they would just rise into this giant dome over the one quadrant of the square.
Our fingers would get sore.
They were like taping up the fingers of all these people blowing up the balloons.
Tying over and over. And there were people walking around with rolls of medical tape. And I'd call one over and they'd come and they'd tape up my fingers. Can't even imagine how many balloons I tied. And then once we pulled the tape off, our fingers were fine.
And to see the joy on the face and the fun that they were having was just, to me, wonderful.
As the net got fuller and fuller, it started to move in ways that we couldn't have anticipated it was going to move because it just got torn apart by the storm. And the net started to get caught on some of the scaffold bolts.
Each time Tom untangled the net, the bolt would just catch another part of it. There were dozens of places getting caught, and any one of them would ruin the balloon release. Thinking quickly, Tom brought down 5 plastic wastebaskets from the crew's hotel rooms. Slicing the cans into flat pieces, he covered enough bolts to allow the net to slide freely by.
And so it wasn't until about an hour before the event actually happened, just before 2, where I actually could say to Treb, I think this is going to work now.
You know, we have the best United Way organization.
This guy ended up becoming the governor.
America.
George Voinovich.
We all ought to be proud of it. And this year's United Way campaign is going to be the best Cleveland ever had because of you. And thank you so very, very much.
Tom Hollowalk was in touch with at least 2 or 3 different weather agencies all the time.
And so the day was sunny and bright, a nice fall day. And so we thought we were free and clear.
Those inflatables that we had lost the night before, those are big balloons. They're 10-foot spheres. And we had made some calls early in the morning, somebody in Chicago, air freighted balloons in. They got there about 10 a.m. and we inflated them. So we had replacement balloons to lift the net up. Not enough to do both sides, but enough to do one side. So when we were getting ready, I was a little bit nervous about, okay, we're only gonna have one side of the net go up. Is this all gonna go okay?
Maybe an hour before the official release, as I remember it, we got notice from the Weather Bureau.
We got this call that there's a possible.
I said, listen, there's a storm blowing in from Canada. It is not that big, but it is going to go downtown Cleveland. It's about an hour or so away. You need to make a decision.
So we got together with United Way, George and Vic Gelb and different people. We said, I think we're going to release early. I said, we're done.
I said, Trev, you're in charge. Whatever it takes, you want me to help you?
And so we said, okay, let's do that. And the kids were just in a party mode at that point. They had done their work. We're sitting out there, and the lines that are going around the net are at least this big around that have to be cut, you know. And Tom Hollowalk had a crew of guys that were going, starting here, boom, 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 and work around that way to cut the lines.
We really didn't know this was going to work until it did.
And we could not reach the square. That entire square, the quadrants, all the way up on all sides were filled with people. And they were in the street, so it was a lot.
As the countdown started, I didn't realize how many people were in public square. There was the largest group of people in downtown Cleveland since the end of World War II. I mean, it was amazing.
Balloons were released. Pictures snapping.
It looks like a giant swarm of insects.
Cheering. It looked like an atom bomb of joy in 50 different colors. You couldn't take your eyes off of it.
There were 2,000 people there jumping up and down. It was extraordinary. And you know, I think it was more awe than anything else. Like almost like lava out of a volcano, you know what I mean?
It is crazy looking.
Very Ghostbuster-like, you know, the way they kind of went around and all that stuff. Is like nothing like that had ever been around Terminal Tower before, I'm sure.
And we celebrated. Guinness was satisfied. They were there. Wow, we did it. We did it. We did it. They got up into the air until we couldn't see them anymore.
I would say probably a half hour after the balloons released, what I would call is a squall came through the area. It was a type of light rain that you don't even put an umbrella up for. It was just kind of like annoying. And it lasted maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
And then the sun came back out. And it was again a beautiful fall day. We thought perhaps we had escaped this drama that we ultimately ended up having.
Here comes the fact checking about it.
The cold front and ensuing rain caused tens of thousands of balloons to return to the ground. This included covering the surface of Lake Erie in front of Burke Lakefront Airport. The Coast Guard that
I'm about to make a drink combo, tubes. Got my glass, about to put in some pub beer. Before we get into the fact checking, about to make a drink combo in honor of the fact checking. That's most definitely what's up. I'm going to pour some lemonade into it. Make it into like a shandy or a radler, whatever you want to call it. There we go. Here it is.
Noon was still conducting a search for two fishermen, Raymond Broderick and Bernard Sulzer, whose boat had capsized during the microburst the previous night between 7 and 9 p.m. To know what really happened to the two boaters, we have to flash forward to a lawsuit filed by Gail Broderick against United Way and Balloonart by Treb.
It was very concerning to me. I didn't ever want to think that we had done something that would injure anybody or anything, you know. During the depositions or shortly thereafter, the attorneys found out, they said the autopsy reports came back from the boaters and they had been, it confirmed that they had died the night before.
It had nothing to do.
Yeah, so the boaters that died, based on their autopsies, had died in the horrible storm the night before the balloon launch.
With the balloon release, they were still looking for.
By the way, yeah, it's not
But
that
when
bad.
they did all of the time sequences of it, There would be no way that two people could survive in that temperature for 12 to 14 hours.
It was tragic. But the family then said, well, the rescue efforts the next day, because of the balloons in the water, they tried something like that, but the lawsuits were thrown out. And these are reports of millions of dollars of damages or millions of dollars in lawsuits and everything are not true.
The lawsuit by Gail Broderick was settled and dismissed with prejudice at defendant's cost. In a Plain Dealer article about the lawsuit, Broderick's attorney Ross Sprague confirmed that the Coast Guard did not call off its search because of the balloons, but claimed that the balloons made it impossible for rescuers to see a person in the water.
We wouldn't call off a search just because there were balloons on the surface of the water. In the air, we may have held the helo back until those balloons cleared the airspace, but our small boat would have stayed on scene and continued to search. The Balloonfest did not have anything to do with the unfortunate deaths of both these men. The water's already 66 degrees and the wind is blowing that fast, and you've got swells picking up, makes it even harder to stay afloat.
Lake Erie is huge, by the way. It's like a mini inland sea. It's gigantic. So when you're out, several miles out into the water, you feel like you're in the ocean.
Got a life jacket on. If we're going by the storm is what caused them to go into Lake Erie, which was at 9 p.m. on the 26th, then functional time for Mr. Sulzer would have been 10 hours, and he would have had functional time to about 7 a.m. on the 27th. And for Mr. Broderick, to about 10 a.m. Balloonfest had nothing to do with their deaths, in my opinion. That's me, Roger Rice, not the Coast Guard's opinion or anything like that. That's my opinion.
Balloonfest wasn't a fatal disaster, but was it responsible for many injuries and millions of dollars of property damage?
Oh, that's baloney. I watched it. There was no chaos in the streets. The aura at the time wasn't disaster. It was, isn't this interesting?
This footage from a YouTube user shows lots and lots of balloons.
All of these, South Slavic names, like Yugoslavian type names, because they have there's so many, South Slavic people, like Serbians and Croatians and Slovenians that live there. It's crazy.
It's drifting back to the ground. But what do we see when we look at this footage? It's not utter chaos. There's people gathering balloons as souvenirs and laughing about it. You can watch the whole home movie on YouTube and see for yourself.
Many injuries. There were many injuries from this thing. No, there were not. There were no injuries. Millions of dollars in property damage. Utter chaos. Balloons screaming back down to the earth. No.
I don't recall hearing anything about any problems until much later, actually. Everybody was excited that they had made the Guinness World Book of Records challenge, and that was all they seemed to worry about. Obviously, there was a lot of public.
They lived in Cleveland, all right? There wasn't much going on. It was the 80s. They didn't have the internet. There was only a couple channels on TV. And they were like, oh, you can be in this book of world records if you just sit around and tie some balloons for a couple hours. So they were all about it. It was a cool thing at the time.
There were a lot of photographers there from around the country that were covering it.
One of those photographers was Tom Sheridan, who was poised on the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge to capture these incredible shots.
I could hear the crowd roar with excitement all the way in Public Square. The wind was coming out of the north, so the balloons swarmed right at me. Shortly after they passed over me, the wind shifted. I don't remember the balloons falling immediately. They just reversed course and headed north. I also didn't encounter any chaos or see any dead birds in the days that followed.
It was a different story on Interstate 90. The highway next to Burke Lakefront Airport was jammed with people still trying to get into downtown for the balloon release.
I'll tell you what, every year in Albuquerque, they would have this huge hot air balloon festival, and hundreds of hot air balloons, hundreds of them. And they would have so many car accidents that when they would have that, because people would be looking at the balloons while they were driving and there'd be like rear end collisions and stuff like that. Every year it would go up because people would get distracted by all the hot air balloons in the sky.
10-car crash. We didn't find out about that until much later. Just people trying to drive and look at these balloons being released, basically. And then some of those balloons coming down on the highway, which certainly can distract your attention. But they were balloons. It wasn't rocks coming down.
Rockfest!
Although the organization claimed the balloons were biodegradable, they were still made out of plastic.
Yeah, so these balloons were latex, and like natural latex is 100% biodegradable. Latex is a natural thing.
Except that these balloons weren't made of plastic at all.
You need a good quality latex balloon to do what we needed it to do, which was to last, 8 to 10, 12 hours, and also be 100% biodegradable. It's made from the sap of rubber trees, latex is, and the only thing that's added into it is a pumiced clay for color, but it will biodegrade within 6 months to a year, depending upon atmosphere, water, or land, or that type of thing,
I asked the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, who owned and operated Edgewater Park in 1986, whether there were any records of balloons at any of their lakefront properties. I asked the Ohio EPA if any complaints were filed in relation to this balloon release. Then I came across a 1986 letter to the editor and Cleveland's plain dealer from Alan Woodliff, a naturalist at Canada's Rondeau Provincial Park. With the help of the park superintendent, I was able to contact him all these years later. He confirmed that he saw thousands of balloon fragments along the Lake Erie shoreline.
Is this an AI-generated image? I've been using AI here and there to like make certain things, and now every time I look at something, I'm like, is this AI? Or did someone actually sit down and draw this?
He also said that the plain dealer sent a reporter and a photographer to Rondeau to meet him. But by the time they arrived,
Not a real photo. I know it's not a real photo. I'm asking if it's like actual art.
balloon fragments had either washed away or been buried. There was nothing to see. The photographer apparently quipped, "At least this won't turn into an international incident." Alan Woodliff himself said it turned into a non-event. He noted that there was less wildlife at Rondeau by that time of year and was glad to learn that the balloons were not made of plastic. Beyond this, several Canadian libraries were nice enough to search through newspaper archives of the Chatham Daily News and the London Free Press, but no stories turned up regarding balloons polluting Canada in 1986.
Yeah, so that's something that's been spread forever, was like, oh, it also like created a massive cleanup in Canada because Canada is right across the lake from Cleveland. And my hometown, like Lake Erie, if you live on Lake Erie, Canada is right on the other side of it.
And after a number of car accidents, these roads had to be closed until a bulldozer...
Listen to how dramatic it is. Yeah, the whole misinformation on the internet thing is dumb. And like there were a whole bunch of people in the chat that were like telling me what happened with it. I'm like, no, that's not actually what happened. And it's like, it's because... And I saw Honest Red, he was like, well, actually, I never really cared. It's like, but you're still saying, you'll still spread the information whether you care or not. And that's how like history gets rewritten on the internet. It's weird, and it's not a good thing, in my opinion.
arrived to clear out the balloons.
You're telling me that the plain dealer sent a reporter and a photographer to look at balloons on a beach, but somehow missed it when Cleveland's own streets were so full of balloons that a bulldozer had to come?
A helium latex balloon, when it gets any moisture on it, will come to the ground. Once it dries off again, then it takes off again and floats away.
The ecological factor of balloons, that was not even something that was in the public consciousness back then.
The general consensus was these balloons were going to go up and head out over Lake Erie and disperse, and God knows how long before they would pop and, just descend.
Today, balloon releases are banned in certain cities, including Cleveland.
We know a lot more as a society 35 years later than we did back then. Balloon fragments can kill birds, fish, and likely some mammals because they cannot be digested.
Oh, Honest Red.
Balloonfest caused a nuisance to places.
Honest Red has hand and mouth disease.
It's like Rondo Provincial Park, and mass balloon releases can be harmful to wildlife.
Hand, foot, and mouth
I'm not saying
disease.
balloon releases should be done today, but was this event an environmental disaster?
There's no whales in that, by the way. It's a lake. Those balloons weren't going to make it to the ocean. It's a giant lake. It's a very large lake.
Of course, we had insurance.
But there's only fish in the lake. There's not like these giant marine mammals or anything.
You don't do something like that.
And birds.
Unless you have insurance, and insurance was expensive. But it was a one-time thing. We started getting a couple of complaints. One was from a horse farm that some balloons had fallen and spooked their horses. And because we were insured, United Way settled the horse farm complaint. I think it was about a $5,000 settlement, a nuisance settlement. That was it. That was it.
To recap, the lawsuits by Gail Broderick and horse owner Louise Nowakowski both ended with settlements that were paid out by an insurance policy, not by United Way. And it turns out the horse wasn't just spooked by the balloons, but by some people who went after the balloons on the property next door.
One of the other things they say is that the Guinness Book took the category out because of this huge disaster in Cleveland. That's not true. That's a lie. The balloon release category stayed in the Guinness Book for almost 10 more years. And there was another attempt at the world record in England back when they released the animated version of Aladdin. Disney did a huge release in England. I was not involved.
We've addressed 5 of the biggest misconceptions about Balloonfest. But how did it get so bad as to become an urban legend?
It was in 2011, 25 years after the event, that all this disaster stuff started. And it started with an article by a gentleman named Michael O'Malley that ran, I think, in the Plain Dealer. And he had not really done research, in my opinion, on the event. And all this stuff came out about a disaster and all the balloons coming back down and clogging waterways in Canada and doing all this stuff. And I remember when the article came out, I called him up, got him on the phone. I said, Michael, what are you doing? This is Trev Heining. What do you mean? I said, well, this article is full of untruths. Well, name one. I said, well, that it's not a certified Guinness World Record. Well, do you have proof of that? I said, I'm sitting here looking at the page in the Guinness Book right here. Oh, can you forward that to me?
Huh?
That article
Yeah, I mean, like there was a published book where you could look up. They didn't have the internet then, but you could get the book and look it up.
An interview with Mandy Basil. Ironically, she shared none of its negative sentiments.
And we did a phone interview. It wasn't very long. I was surprised at the negative tone of the article. I didn't expect that because in my memory, it was not negative at all. Everything about it was positive.
The current editor of Cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer, Chris Quinn, was Metro editor in 2011 when the article ran.
So I don't blame Michael O'Malley for this. It's mine. If there was a problem with that story, and there were some deficiencies in it, we should have dealt with them as editors. It's clear that that story painted an incomplete picture that opened the doorway for later people who don't care about accuracy to say ridiculous things.
Probably the most damage one could possibly hope to achieve with balloons.
It hit its high level of badness.
Probably the most damage someone could hope to achieve with balloons. Really? What if you like had a bunch of balloons carry a bomb or something like that?
With the Atlantic Monthly, when they recommended highly this YouTube short documentary that said ridiculous things, that was the height of it.
And I don't use the word lie a lot, but these are blatant lies that are then regurgitated on the internet, and each one seems to get more and more.
Pedestrians were also at risk, with many being hit by the falling balloons.
Misinformation on the internet is so crazy.
Emergency services were overwhelmed, with police and firefighters struggling to keep up with the number of calls they were receiving. This caused widespread power outages and disrupted communication networks, making it even harder for emergency services to respond to the situation.
Anybody can say pretty much anything they want. As far as Balloonfest goes, it pretty much is the poster child for what's wrong on the internet right now.
If we have any culpability in starting us down that road, then I felt it's our responsibility and really our privilege to restore it, to remind people that this was a good thing for Cleveland. This is long before people thought balloon launches were bad for the environment. So you can't use the prism of modern thought on what was happening in '86. In '86, balloon launches were a big deal, and this was, for Cleveland, a big deal.
First Amendment attorney David Marburger is not surprised that untrue stories could create such a draw on social media.
I've had several First Amendment cases where speech on social media was the issue, and so I've had to examine the Twitter accounts of a whole lot of people. The only reason for posting
Balloonfest was the Hindenburg disaster.
Anything, it's to get people to react to it. So the predominant theme is hyperbolic disapproval. They express themselves like 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds, but they were, 55-year-old adults.
Treb used to spend his time trying to reach out to people who publish these types of things online. Not one has responded to him.
Yeah, the most recent one, I actually said, if you were a good investigative reporter, you would go back and research the media that happened 3 days prior, 3 days after this event. And if you find any of the media, any of them say disaster or failure once, I'll buy you and your crew a Rolls Royce of their choice. How's that? Didn't mean anything.
I don't think we as a community did a good enough job of focusing on the positive and what it did. And I think we allowed the negative stories to take foot and overshadow everything else.
It was a big, happy, successful event.
The river fire was over a decade before this.
I felt privileged that I was a part of it. We talked about it a lot for a couple years, and there was nothing negative about it.
It was quite a feat, and it seemed to bring the city together. There was a good feeling that we were doing something, and something was happening in downtown Public Square. We just wanted good things to happen, and this seemed like a pretty good idea.
I think the thing I'm proudest of is creating an opportunity for the kids from all over the area to come together, meet each other, and accomplish a goal. We just don't do enough of that.
The people of Cleveland have changed a lot since then, and so has the sense of pride that most feel about this town.
I think we have turned a corner. We're a long way from those dark days of the early 1980s.
All right, so the rest of this is just like whatever. I have to pee again because I drink so many drink combos. I will be right back and we will continue. I have stopped the merge this time. What else we got here? Shit.
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here, and I thank God for a lot of things. One is that he made me a boomer. That's slang for people born during the post-World War II years. As a boomer, I religiously practiced the art of manhood in a nation that is being filled with girly men and sissies. I truly believe that we boomers are the last of the great Americans. We were the last ones to get a good solid education before godless humanism turned the American education system into a nationwide dumb kid factory. We boomers definitely had the best music and the coolest cars. We were the last generation that was taught.
I know I've watched this before, but it deserves a review.
Magnificent true history of the greatest country the world has ever seen. Today's young people are so poorly educated that they yell the word Nazi at anyone who opposes their foolishness. They have no idea who the Nazi Party was, what they did, or what they stood for. Today, the dumbed-down education system is actually pushing Nazi values on American kids. Politically motivated racism, burning cities and looting stores and calling it social justice, putting people in jail on fake criminal charges, listening to news media that does nothing but lie every day, and aggressively silencing anyone who dares to have an opinion that disagrees with the party line. How about stealing elections through massive voter fraud? All that is what the Nazi Party did in 1939 Germany, and it is what the Democrat Party is doing today, and the young generation is too poorly educated to see it. But us boomers see it. Our parents fought the Nazis in World War II.
I ride a motorcycle and I'm old. That's Wild Bill's gimmick.
And today we see the Nazi Party being reborn in Washington, D.C. Yes, I'm a boomer and I'm a Bible thumper. I did not take the Fauci injection, and I know the difference between a man and a woman. I know what it is to live free.
I did not take the Fauci out. I did not take the Fauci injection, and by God, I know the difference between a man and a woman.
Watching an entire new generation ignorantly marching themselves into political and spiritual slavery. But I do what I can to sound the alarm and to call the USA back to the God and country principles that made America great in the first place. And those principles start right here with the gospel message of eternal life and freedom in Christ. That is what the USA was built on, and that is the only hope to restore decency to the USA. This is Boomer Bill saying, think about it.
The best Bill content was when he talked to Trumpster Bob. Sir? Sir? I think I have another one here.
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here, and look what I have. A new shipment of gospel booklets. This is good medicine for America.
Is this his merch?
Thank you to those who donated to keep these going out. Got a new cover on this one. The Journey Home. I like that. Christian men and women need to remember that this is not our home. I've lived in the USA all my life, and it feels like home, and I'm horrified and angered at the wicked people who are tearing down everything good about this nation and turning it into an outpost of hell. I'm training myself to focus on the magnificent kingdom to come, where I will finally be in my true home.
Oh, is he? Okay, so he looks forward to dying? Is that what he's talking about?
A place 1 billion times more magnificent than anything on this planet called Earth. A place
anything on this planet
where I will see the face of my Savior for eternity. But we must also remember that there's another place, a place of eternal suffering and anguish, where men and women who die in their sins will exist.
That God
forever.
made to send people to.
Forever. A place there where there is no hope, no rest, not a single drop of water, no light, no entertainment, just an eternity of torment and regret. And there's only one way anyone can avoid going to hell, and it's in these Gospels. John chapter 1, beginning in verse 9, says this about Jesus Christ. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. One of my longtime friends, Diane, is sadly very anti-Christian, and because of that, she's a strong supporter of homosexuality, and she says, Bill, we are all God's children. Sorry, Diane, the Bible says you are not. Only those who belong to Christ are
You
God's
are
children.
not.
Your stubborn rejection of Jesus guarantees your eternal damnation, unless you repent and believe the gospel. Thank you to those who have clicked the link in the description to keep
Yeah,
these
you're my
gospel.
friend, but you're going to hell. Isn't it great to be Bill's friend? What a great friend, Bill. It's amazing.
Was going to people who desperately need to hear the message of eternal life.
Want to remind everybody, we are getting towards the end of the stream, and this figure here is still up for grabs, and it's a really close race, all right? We got Jacob Palak in first place with $40. In second place, Logic Blaster with $20. In third place, Behemoth with $12. So it's really close. Anyone can take it. Let's see if so we're getting close to the end, so you might want to get in your donations if you're interested in winning this shit. Because there's going to be a point where I'm going to have to be like, no more bids, you know?
Who were the American Indians? Who made up the Aztecs? Better question. Who made up the fucking Incas and were they related? Oh no, not until you met up in Mexico, motherfuckers.
Because with 3 medicines and 1 inhaler,
You do? Those are two different fucking people, but they was related in DNA, come to find out. Because the Japanese had settled in Peru.
The Japanese, the people who originally populated both of the American continents came from Asia at some point. I don't think they're Japanese, because I don't think there was such a thing as Japanese when they came over, because it was that long ago. But
Left a monoglyph with people there because they lost shit. Went back to goddamn China, minus the full ship.
China now.
Them motherfuckers, hey, 100 plus of them motherfuckers left behind over there in Peru. Is God's a king.
Ask your doctor about once daily trellis.
That is who made up the Inca Empire.
All day and night.
the Japanese.
The descendants of the Japanese left behind 20,000 fucking years ago.
They weren't Japanese. They like lived in Siberia, which is part of Russia now. They weren't Japanese. What are you talking about?
Right after the Great Flood.
The Great Flood. Oh my God. No, I don't want to watch Glenn Beck. I can't do it today. God, he looks like shit now, too. Ah! When T-Bob called Wild Bill, that was the best Wild Bill content. It was hilarious because T-Bob really went hard on Wild Bill. Oh no, my camera died. What the fuck, man? Selling his ass, Shabisky. All right, there we go. Yeah. What the fuck? All right, Tubes. I had a lot of drink combos. Please like the stream. And if you would be so kind, I am trying to raise money. So I'm offering the figure that people seem to like. The last time people donated a ton of money to try to get one. So I'm kind of surprised it didn't work this time. But if you want the figure and you want to help the show out, I had a bunch of them made years ago, and a lot of them I sold, but I had some extras, and there's not too many of them out there. Let's watch some Shanny's shit.
I can't cheat you.
T-Bob is not correct. They were not Japanese. There was no such thing as Japanese at that point. Like tens of thousands of years ago. I think that's what he said, right? He said 20,000 years ago, but when did the people cross over the Bering Strait into North America? When did that happen? Approximately, obviously. There's no way we could know for sure. How long ago? He said 20,000 years ago, but he also said the Great Flood and shit, and I don't even know.
You know, I keep going in my head. If I'm silent, they win, because they want me to be silent. They want me to think that I'm afraid of truth and hide.
As early as 30,000 years ago? I'm seeing things suggesting 30,000 years ago.
Because they want to try to put some narrative on that I'm like ashamed of shit. No. No, the fact is these people continually exploit my family and me.
You exploited your own family. You streamed a disastrous drive. Like the thing where they got stuck on the train tracks, that's my favorite Shanny video.
And the bad things that happened and the lies, and they continually focus onto that. And they try to somehow get me to respond in some kind of angry way.
You do. You've done it.
Me, I don't got anger in me for these people. All I have is like sorrow and pity for them. How they could be so cold and just completely outright evil to exploit people and their weaknesses and their families, especially when the family members they're
such a victim complex
trying to exploit right now have passed away.
Hello. Yeah. Tip train.
You know, the anniversary of my dad's death is coming up.
That's
So
sad.
I'm
I'm sorry your dad died. You're still reprehensible.
a little bit more sensitive. You know, my parents died within 6 months of each other. And it all hit me all at once. All of it all at once. So when I see her face and I hear her voice and I know she's just up to some evil fucking shit, it triggers me, yeah. Put me back in that place where I didn't know how to defend myself. I was too afraid to defend myself because if I defended myself...
This sounds like a therapy session, but she's talking to a chat.
From my mom, I'd be a monster. But see, that's what these people want. They want you in a defensive stance. No. All you see is monstrous people wanting a reaction to something that is absolutely disgusting, exploitative, and it's just fraud to do to someone. Was I hurt and triggered? Oh yeah, I still am. But those are feelings I have to deal with. That's nobody's business. You know? But like there's going to be a day where you're going to be held accountable for the words you do and what you do to others, and you're not going to have any excuses. Like me, I find the majority of the human race obnoxious and cruel. I don't like people. You know, it's just like what was done was just another reminder why I don't want to have friends, why I don't want another person in my life, why I don't want to open up to anyone.
You guys are the reason I don't have friends, assholes.
You know? That's what that reminder is. It's a reminder of abuse that I haven't healed from, and I don't know if I can heal from. But
leave me alone.
These people are exploiting my abuse so they can have something to talk about. That's the type of people they are. That's how scummy they are as people. So, like, if they want to be scumbags for the rest of their life, that's on them. You know, but I don't want to be a scumbag. I don't want anyone's approval. I just want to be able to do my own thing and say my own thing and help people who need to be helped and all that other stuff. But, like, this personal shit, like, nah, you didn't earn my respect. You know, someone said, the truth hurts, huh? I'm like, what? That my family is being exploited for someone to make more money?
Who's your family?
Over repeating the same videos they've repeated over and over again throughout the years. I mean, it's pretty cruel to go to someone who's still mourning their dead parents and trying to remind them of the things that weren't worked out. It's a pretty scumbag thing. That's pretty shitty
It's
thing
a
to do to someone.
scumbag thin. All right? It's a scumbag
really is.
thin.
So, I'm gonna go take a much needed long break to heal myself. It's not easy on Jason, so please give him support, because when I'm in this mode, I don't really talk a lot. Most of the time I'm disassociating and having flashbacks. And that isn't good. You know, and I don't want anyone to feel ashamed if they do have flashbacks, because flashbacks aren't your fault. The flashbacks I've been having,
This whole, like, I'm a victim thing is so sad.
as of lately,
And
are not my
hilarious.
fault.
It's great when things are both sad and hilarious.
You know, I just have to keep reminding me that it will pass as long as it like goes on, because it can go on a long time.
As long.
But it will pass.
You're such a strong woman, Shani.
And then you got that issue of borderline that I have. So it takes a long time for my
long time
emotions to regulate. And this was just like a complete and utter nail in the coffin, and it was just like, because I was still trying to cope and heal from everything I've been hearing, what's been going on in Palestine. And it's really taken a big toll.
It's taken a big toll
on me and my
She knows that's a hot topic, so she's exploiting it. She doesn't give a shit about Palestine.
psyche.
She does not care about it. She's pretending to try and, like, link herself to it. It's some weird narcissistic bullshit.
And then they added this onto it, and it was just dominoes falling over, man. And I was having flashbacks for the past week
When
anyway.
I hear flashbacks, I
over
think
my
of, like,
cat.
someone that did too much acid, and they, like, every now and then will kind of have, like, a mini trip for 15, 20 minutes. So when I hear I'm having flashbacks, that's immediately what I think of.
Because the stuff that's happened in Palestine, the torture techniques and stuff,
That was Jason. Yeah.
the IDF uses on the Palestinians was very. It reminded me of some things, and then I started having.
What if there was a King Cobra? Cobra wouldn't do this, by the way. But it's just weird to think about. What if there was a thruple and it was King Cobra and Rev, and then Shani was the, like, cream in their Oreo cookie? Like,
the flashbacks and imagery and no control over my PTSD the past like couple
could all be
weeks. So
golfed
it's
together.
like I have to defrag everything.
Combs would do it for a pack of smokes.
So I guess I'll do the end spiel. If you want to follow me, you can follow me. If you want to donate, in my description, you can go and find all the links for a donation. I'm sure Jason will probably make a video today.
I'm probably gonna be, if I can, streaming on YouTube, and they know where I'm.
I hear about a lot of people having COVID these days, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to get that shit again. So when I heard Revelation News hacking up, I'm like, oh, maybe he has COVID. I've been seeing around people have been getting COVID again, and I'm like, oh god, I don't want it again, because it was pretty trash to have it. Felt all warm and tired. And when like I'd be breathing, I'm like, oh, breathing is a little harder, you know?
All right. So anyway, I'll let you guys go. I need to just try to decompress. Because it's never try to purposely trigger someone who has PTSD over something you know that could be a possible weakness to them. It's extremely cruel and just inhuman to do to someone who has struggled so much trauma in their past. So, peace of Maranatha, guys.
Peace of Maranatha? What does that mean? What does that mean? All right. Turning the tricks, Shabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Shabisky, selling his ass, that's risky. All right. So I am putting up a timer. It's at 14 minutes and 30 seconds right now. And I will show you guys the leaderboard for the figure while we watch the countdown. All right. Here it is. Here it is. I wish there was a different way I could make one of these, but there really isn't. All right. Here we are. And if we get another dono, I'll refresh it and then we'll see who's on top right now. But as you can see, these are the top 4 right now to get this limited edition Ben figure with, you know, I look cool. I have the old blue headphones that I used to wear back in the day before they broke, which, by the way, there's a certain brand of Sony headphone that is really nice, but it breaks in the same place every time. I got my mask. There's even like a cool thing on the feet where there's like a DP logo there. Very well made. It's like a hair stuck to him. See, my DNA is on this shit too, so you can clone me. Anyway, there you go. The link is right there. If you got $50, you're now in first. I mean, if you got $41, you're in first place. So if you want to help contribute and get yourself one of these, I'll ship it to you. $50 is probably what you need to solidify a win here. Let's see if anyone's interested. There's so few of these left. So if you would like one, and I'll make sure I have all the good packaging and everything to make sure it makes it there safely, because for a while we were sending out figures a couple years ago, so I still have a lot of the packaging. On Patreon this month, we're going to do Who's Worse, Jared, or no, I'm sorry. Sturgis versus Kendall. Who's worse, Sturgis versus Kendall? And there's mixed feelings about that, by the way. Who is worse, Sturgis versus Kendall? I see a Kendall. Some would say Sturgis because he's so dumb. I don't even have an answer. The Ben Pie mask, it would have to be way more. What's up? I don't know who you are, but cool to meet you, fellow checkmark person. Oh, you know what? I've seen you before. We're going to pick 5 things that we can rank them all on. Yeah, I think I've seen you when you're interviewing Bob, which is kind of hilarious because Bob is such a dumbass. He's fun though, and he can be a charming guy. You know, he can be like a likable guy, but then he's just like a terrible person in so many other ways. And then he's got like these African women that like catfish him and he sends them money and shit. Like what? What the fuck is going on with that guy? Oh, I'm not surprised. Bob docks his people, for sure. He harassed an entire small town in Ohio. Paulding, Ohio. The sheriff of Paulding, Ohio called him and told him to stop calling people. It's like a small town where like the sheriff would call someone because it's such a small town. Bob is a criminal. I mean, Bob is a literal criminal. And he's crazy. I mean, but he is also funny. He also thinks he's tough, but he probably isn't because he's so like sickly and shit. Probably not. And he's really little. He's actually kind of small. He used to lie and say he was like 6'4" or something, but he's actually like 5'5" or 6" or something like that. Oh, God, Shanny threw me for a loop. Sturgis milk. Sturgis milk. Hey, if you're out there, I don't even know. I don't know if there's someone waiting till like the time is almost expired to drop the dono so that there won't be competition. I don't even know if Jacob is still around. I don't know. We're going to do a Who is Worse between Kendall and Sturgis for our Patreon show, one of our Patreon shows this month. And we're going to pick 5 conditions to judge them by, and the audience will vote on it. And we'll see who's worse. We've done a few of these in the past. We did Jared versus Sturgis. So we'll have to come up with the 5 pretty soon. So, for those of you who are wondering, this is the leaderboard. The top donor tonight gets this figure. Five minutes left. I don't know if someone's... By the way, I'm just reminding anyone, like, with their hand on the dono button, if you're planning on a last-minute thing, there's probably, like, 5 to 10 seconds of delay that you're watching right now. No, hold on. Let me look at the 2 timers here. No, you know what? There's more like 2 seconds of delay from what I'm seeing on my computer. There's like 2 to 3 seconds of delay. I don't know. I think Kendall is more entertaining than Sturgis. I think Kendall's weird, and his dad and everything, which you have to factor in. Like, all of that is... I've been more entertained by that than Sturgis. Sturgis is just like, yeah, bud. Yeah, bud. And Sturgis is dumb. Like, Kendall is definitely smarter than Sturgis. Kendall's just like a weird man-child. Yeah, we'll probably do like least entertaining, dumbest. We'll come up with 5 categories to vote on, and we'll have the people vote on them, and we'll watch a whole bunch of videos from both of them and compare. It's $5 on Patreon. We're doing it on the 19th, by the way, for anyone who's interested. We're going to do it on the 19th. Very exciting. I think Jared is the dumbest. You know what? Actually, no. I think the dumbest. I think Jared. I think Sturgis beat Jared for the dumbest. Like, we all agreed that Jared was probably smarter than Sturgis, which is saying something because Jared is really dumb. The whole thing with Trubisky and Jared getting his channel terminated, that was a demonstration for how stupid he is. All right, we're down to a little under 2 minutes. I don't know if anyone's going to donate. I do need the funding right now, so if anyone wants a figure, right now is probably the time to drop a dono of your choice to get yourself into first place. I've got other DP memorabilia that I should dig out of storage and see what I've got that people might like. All right. Jared's dad, I've never seen him on camera. I've heard his voice. He sounded like a nice guy, but he has a horrendous son. So I think, all right, so it's looking like Jacob might seal the deal. In which case, Jacob, you should email me. I'll have to look up what your stream. Email me, ben@drunkenpeasants.com, but do it from the email that's connected to your Streamlabs account, because I'm going to cross-reference it. I'm giving a few seconds for lag, though. Going once. Going twice. All right. I think Jacob played your cards well. Wow, you got it at a deal compared to the last people that really competed. There was like 2 people. That's why we're already at 58% of the goal. Patreon-a-thorn. Oh, there we go. Well, that's $1 into Patreon. All right, so I think we are going to wrap it up. I appreciate all of you. And I'll probably have to stream tomorrow, honestly, because I was trying to make some more money to cover some costs. Some business associated costs. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.
Trubisky eat banana. He is a male hooker, making love to Shanny to get some booger sugar, and then his pimp will slap him for not getting his cut. And if he gets too naughty, he will stretch out his butt. Turning the tricks, Trubisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Trubisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Trubisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Turning the tricks, Trubisky, selling his ass, that's risky. Trubisky eat banana, he is a male hooker, making love to Shanny to get some booger sugar, and then his pimp will slap him for not getting his cut. And if he gets too mouthy, he will stretch out his butt. Turning the tricks, Shabisky selling his ass. That's risky. Turning the tricks, Shabisky selling his ass. That's risky. Shabisky eat banana, he is a male hooker, making love to Shanny to get some booger sugar, and then his pimp will slap him for not getting his cut. And if he gets too mouthy, he will stretch out his butt.